We are live. Hello. Welcome. Mike B is first to the chat. 4 minutes early. I love it. Give me a second. I need to get myself situated. Here we go. All right, so it's been 2 weeks? I guess I skipped last week. I needed to work Monday. I'm working on a very strong video for this month that will be out in April. I think it's going to be the biggest video I will have done to date. It's going to give you guys some insight on some new strategies I've been using to take my income to the next level. And to prove to you guys that I'm not talking out my ass, I'm going to show you how much money I made last week. And it's really had a strong impact on my earnings. I'm probably making the most money per mile and per hour that I've ever made on the platform, despite the trend of drivers being paid less. So I'll quickly go through some of the topics that I'm going to go through today. Of course, the first thing I do is I share my earning over the course of the previous week for both Uber and Lyft. And then we dig down into how much I'm making per mile, per hour, my expenses, and things like that. And then something major happened last week. Minneapolis had some wage changes. They're in the news a lot. I'm sure you've seen some headlines. So today you're going to get my take on it. And then we're going to respond to a comment where a viewer, I guess he's trying to convince me that his Tesla is a good investment. And while he does make some good points, I have some counterpoints that I want to show him. So I'll do that. We're still kicking the brand new Tesla horse just a little bit because I really want to do my best to convince people that a brand new Tesla is not a good investment. But if someone has more information that might convince me that it is a good investment, I'm willing to consider it. I'm willing to listen. And I'm going to use math to determine if that's accurate or not. And then we have some what I call a rideshare court, some illegal things and some crimes and some things that are going on in our space that I think you guys should be aware of, whether it's from what Uber is criminally doing as a company to what passengers are doing when they're getting into our back seat. I know it can be scary, I know it can be discouraging, but it's important to have a level of reality when we talk about rideshare. Like, I'm not gonna make it seem like it's all great and perfect all the time. No, you gotta, be aware of your surroundings, understand what's going on, understand what the person behind you might want to do, understand what Uber might want to do. And then if we get to it, we just have some rideshare stories about, veterans, moms, single moms using gig work, just various things, renting. But we probably won't get to that today. The stream should be 3 hours. It's 4 p.m. now. We should go until 7 p.m. ish. And then after the stream, I gotta go and drive. So I'm gonna eat, go out and drive. I'm trying to make a lot of money this month so that the video that I make for you guys next month does well. So let's start off with how much money I've made. I always show proof and then go to the spreadsheet because I'm always accused of lying. And I'm not lying. So here's proof. This is from the actual Lyft app using a Windows app that allows me to connect my phone to my computer so I can show it to you guys. So on Monday, March 4th, last week, I made $125 with 3 hours of online time. I've been doing a very bad job of tracking my door-to-door time, but this is my online time. This is all I got to get better at it, but this is just what we're going to use today as we're talking about, working and not working. So Monday, $125, nothing crazy, 3 hours, pretty good. On Tuesday, I made $39.14. What really happened is I drove Monday night into Tuesday. And so once 5 a.m. comes, some of those rides just bled over into the next day. I didn't actually drive on Tuesday. So keep that in mind. I didn't drive on Tuesday. So that's one day that I took off already. One day, right? I'm going to scroll up to the next day. On Wednesday, I drove for 5 hours and 43 minutes, but I made $265.89. I'll break down those hourly rates after in the spreadsheet. The bonuses were really good. The tips were really good. The rides were really good. But let's keep moving. Let's see what we did on Thursday. On Thursday, $525, 11 hours of online time. I got some ride challenges in there, I think. Yeah. I think it was like $230. Pretty sure. I think it activated on the next day on Friday. So as you can see, I didn't drive on Friday. All you can see is that I got my gas cash back right here. You know, whenever I use the Lyft debit card as a elite driver, I get 10% cash back. And so that's just some of the gas coming back to my account. And you can see the ride challenge. I barely made this ride challenge. You can see that the ride challenge got added to my account at 5:15 a.m. Right? In my market, the Lyft day starts at 5 a.m. So I only had until Friday 4:59 a.m. in order to complete the challenge, and I barely made it. I got a ride right before it turned 5 o'clock. I dropped them off at 5:15, and that's why the challenge is now in my account at 5:15. If I was like a few minutes late, yeah, or made one mistake, I would have missed out on an extra $130. So, but part of that's on me, right? I have to acknowledge what I could have done to be better. And the part that I could have done to be better is I could have worked on Tuesday. You guys saw it. I didn't work on Tuesday and I should have. I kind of got a little lazy. I kind of let the rides add up. And so I had to really, put in 12, 14 hours on Thursday in order to make sure I hit this challenge. And I hit it, but I almost didn't. And so I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to where I can improve as a person to increase the likelihood of success. So whenever you're out there, a lot of people like to always blame Uber and Lyft. Oh, they're not giving me rides. They're making it hard to hit this challenge. Some of that might be true, but it's important that you do everything in your power. I'm speaking to myself as well to make sure that you put yourself in a position to be successful. And I almost let that harm me. I really did. And I let the trend continue, right? As you can see on Friday, I had another challenge that I was going to try to hit. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel like working. And so I didn't. I was a little burnt out, wanted to hang out with my wife, and I did. And of course, I had fun that night, but I put a ride challenge at risk. I could have went out and driven 20 rides, a couple of hours and come back. I should have split the difference. I shouldn't just said, you know what, no. So then what happened was on Saturday and Sunday, I had to do a lot of rides, a lot of rides. Still scrolling. So Saturday I drove 8 hours and 8 minutes. It was more than that. Online time is not an accurate way to count your miles. It was maybe about 11 to 12 hours, to be honest. If I'm going to be transparent with you guys, made $492.44 on Saturday. Great day. I got 27 rides done. I needed 70 rides for the weekend in order to hit the challenge, and I only did 27 on Saturday. So I'm behind, right? I still need to do, what is it? 43 43 rides to make it. 3 plus 27 is 30. 40 plus 30 is 70. So yeah, I needed to do 43 rides in one day because I didn't work Friday. So here's Sunday. Did a lot of rides on Sunday. I did hit the challenge. Spoiler alert. 43 rides, 12 hours and 49 minutes, and I made $797.74. Absolutely booming. The ride challenge was for $230, I believe. So you can see the 130 right here, right? And the other part is somewhere down here, somewhere. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Um, hmm. Here it is, $425. So yeah, so I did good. I I'm really good at countering my procrastination, but I want to get better at not procrastinating. I don't want to like be close to hitting things. I hit it at 3:30 and I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm going home, even though I still had an hour and a half left before it became Monday. So good day. My area, we had the food and wine last week. So the students left, which to me, that made me worried that I wouldn't be able to hit these ride challenges because the students are usually the quick rides, but they were gone. They were on spring break, and in spring break in my town, it gets slow. However, we had a festival called Food and Wine Festival, and that made up for it. It really did. The rides were better, less completely drunk college students. The tips were better. I got some cash tips that I didn't include here. It's not a lot either, but it's fine. You don't have to worry about it. And just some new strategies that I'm employing have taken my income to the next level. And I'm also aware that during off season, pay can get really, really low. We all just came from off season. And I want you guys to pay attention right now. When it is busy again in your city, do not take it for granted. You need to work as much as you can. You need to make sure you have enough money saved for the slow seasons. The slow season it's going to differ from market to market. But for me, the slow season starts right after September, middle September, October-ish. That's when it starts getting slow. We'll have a few pop-ups like Halloween and things like that. But don't let what happened this past season happen to you again this year. You need to be thinking about it now. You need to be creating your emergency fund now. You need to understand what your monthly bill is every month to live, your rent, your car payment, your food, you know, figure out what that number is. And you need to make sure you have 3 to 4 months of that sitting in your account when the slow season starts. Maybe not even 3 to 4 months, maybe 2 months worth, but you need to have enough money to make sure that when it gets slow again, and it will, that you have enough money to make it through. So the money I'm making now seems like a lot, but I'm just hibernating. I'm stacking up for the hibernation. The way I'm handling my bank account now is, me, my wife, income goes into our one one account, and then I have a business account. Every week, I put $1,200 from the business account into the home account, and whatever is left at the end of the month in the home account, that goes towards paying off our debt. But I'm able to save up any overflow over that 1,200 in my business account towards car maintenance that might pop up. And I'm slowly putting money away to buy another car. My car just crossed 140,000 miles and it's doing very well. I've only had one issue that cost me $400 to fix. That's with the wheel speed sensor. Apart from that, this has been the best car I've owned. I've owned it since 500 miles. I bought it used for $12,000. It was like $16,000 down payment. Then the loan was like $12,000. It's all paid off. We paid it off. So I just want to make sure that if something were to happen to the car, that I have enough money to either fix it. Like even if the transmission goes, it shouldn't cost more than $4,000 to fix that. So I just want to make sure I have that. I want to make sure I'm not getting caught with my pants down. So just want to give you guys a little insight on how I'm managing my finances. So pretty good. With Uber, we didn't do too much Uber just because it was just too great on Lyft. So that's $45.19. So I did take a screenshot. Let me see if I don't think I can pull it up. I should be able to pull it up. I took a screenshot of how much money I made last week. And the total, if you were to go through all the numbers I just gave you, is $2,388.13 over the course of 130 rides in 42 hours and 9 minutes. It's really good. It's really good. Let's see what that works out to per hour. And this is online time. I spend more than online time working. So this is not a totally accurate. If I had to guesstimate, you can probably add 15 hours to that. And so we'll see what those numbers look like. So 3,000, I wish. $2,388 divided by 42 hours. This is online time. That's $56.85 per hour. Excellent, but not the full story. So we'll do it again, $2,388. And we'll divide it by, let's say 15 hours on top of that 42 hours, 47, 57. So we divide it by 57 hours. And that's $41 an hour. Still excellent. It's still pretty good. I'm happy with that. So let's use my spreadsheet now. I didn't even show you guys as I was doing the math. I'm sorry. There it is. I'm not going to redo it, but there it is. So $41.89 an hour. Let's look at my spreadsheet. And here's where the spreadsheet that I've used, you can get it in the link below by supporting me on Patreon. And this is just for March so far. So far I've driven 2,077 miles. And here's the total that I've made so far in March. $3,255.24. And we're only 11 days in. So I think that's pretty good. Over the course of 64 hours and 34 minutes, I've gotten really bad about tracking my all offline time and my door-to-door time. So take this number with not a grain of salt, but a couple grains of salt. So I strongly believe online time can be easily manipulated, but I've been just doing a poor job of tracking my door to door time, and I'm gonna try to get better. But I've been working a lot more, and I want to make sure I'm getting out there and actually making money. And sometimes I let my processes slip through my fingers, and that's what's happened in March. I just need to get better at it. My per mile is $1.57 per mile. Now my mileage is accurate. I use my odometer and I put it into the spreadsheet, so that's 100% accurate. Like I'm doing very well on a per mile basis. You can see I'm not really doing Uber. $45.19 with Uber, and you can see the rest is with Lyft. I mean, you can see my daily income down here, but we pretty much just went through that. And the crazy thing is, I took 2 days off last week and I made $2,388. If I wasn't procrastinating and I was more on top of it, I for sure could have cracked $3,000. 100% could have cracked $3,000. All right, guys. I gotta use the bathroom. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. I have returned. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so yeah, spreadsheet. My favorite part of the spreadsheet before we move on is up here, where it shows you how much I'm really making after expenses and after taxes, because that's what matters most. So my mileage write-off, based off of the mileage I've driven so far, would be $1,391, which would make my taxable income $1,863. Now, my taxable income isn't representative of what I make at the end of the day. That's just what the government thinks I make at the end of the day. Now, because that discrepancy exists, I made this calculator to subtract my actual expenses from my tax liability and figure out what my true net income is. And my true net income is $2,444.45. Say it again. My true net income is $2,445.94. And my gross, comparatively, is $3,255.24. So that means, I'm going to repeat it again. I grossed $3,255.24. And over here, my actual take home after expenses and estimated taxes is $2,445.94. Now, this doesn't even include the tax write-offs I would get from the Uber and Lyft fees, because Uber and Lyft, they don't really show you that until the end of the year in a way that is easy to digest. You can see my true hourly rate is $37.88 after expenses and taxes. But again, this is based off of online time because I've been doing a really bad job of tracking my expenses. So before we jump into the Minneapolis story, Minnesota story, well, I guess it's both. I'm gonna check in on the comments to see what you guys are up to. Might be, yeah, I already read that. Kendrick says, "Yo, I reached out on Facebook. Hit me up. I'll definitely hit you up. Um, if you have a Discord, send me your Discord information. I think that would be the best way to talk." Mike B says, "3 minutes late, not a good look." I was I 3 minutes late? Hmm. Maybe the stream might be getting to you 3 minutes late. I don't think I was late. I'm gonna verify when I'm editing the video, but I don't think I was 3 minutes late, but I could have been. I could be wrong. I could. William says, "Hey Tristan, this is Will from Drivers Coast to Coast Space and big follower of you on X. Welcome." And for those of you who don't know, Driver Coast to Coast is on Twitter, well on X, and I'm gonna link to it at the end of my stream. They usually start around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is right when I'm ending my stream. Typically, what I'll do is I'll end my stream, I'll eat, I'll jump in the car, and I'll listen to them while I'm taking rides. It's a refreshing space to be part of. You know, they talk about whatever's happening in their daily lives, and they talk about whatever's happening in Rideshare, but it's in a way that is smart, if that makes sense. It's not just them taking a big poop on whatever is happening. It's them like really analyzing it. You know, sometimes it's something. Sometimes they're analyzing good things, and sometimes they're analyzing bad things, and it's really refreshing. So make sure you check them out later. General says, "Dope way to get out there and hit the challenge." Thank you, man. I am I'm kind of hard on myself, and sometimes I don't take a moment to really appreciate myself, and I did today. I mean, I did last week. I was really proud of myself. I highlighted that I was procrastinating too much, and then I started to take steps to procrastinate less. Like for example, um, even though I worked very hard Saturday and I was really tired, I made sure I stopped at the gas station to fill up my tank so that when Sunday came, I could just hit the ground running. And small things like that do add up because, you know, when I'm leaving, I might pull up my phone, I might see some great challenges in my area that I can't capitalize on because I gotta go get some gas, you know? So very proud of myself. Oh, I didn't show you guys. I kind of skipped over it, but I blew a tire. I blew a tire Saturday night. And you know what? I forgot about this. How did I forget about this? Tristan, come on. All right, hold on. Let me find it. And I'll give you guys a little bit of the story of what happened. I'm gonna go on YouTube. I posted a little short of it. All right, so this is the short. It's 9 p.m. You need 20 more rides on your ride challenge to get an extra $130. And you have until 5 a.m. to do it. Do you quit? Or do you keep going? Do you drive around and pick up people on a spare tire? Or do you go home? Let me know what you would do. This is not rideshare advice. I I put a spare on my car. It was like at 17 psi and it needed to be at 50, so I did put air in it before I took any passengers. But I put a spare on my car. I took the hubcaps off of all of my rims so that no one would be able to distinguish the fact that it's a spare tire, and I got those 20 rides. And like I showed you in the in when I was breaking down the rides, I barely like that last ride. It came at like 5:15 a.m. and the challenge ends after 5 a.m. I barely made it, and I'm proud of myself for not quitting, even though you know the numbers were stacked against me. I had to average like over 3 rides per hour in order to finish out the challenge, and you know I'm proud of myself for doing it. I stuck with it. Adversity showed its face, and I blew my tire. And I didn't show you guys, and I'll show it to you now. But that expense on how much it costs to replace the tire is on my spreadsheet, and I kind of skipped over it. I don't know how I let that happen. So here it is. Here's the how much I spent on gas so far in March: $143.29. I've been using my Upside and my Lyft Elite bonus, 10% bonus cash back, and I actually got a free gas tank this month. It was pretty dope. So if you're seeing my gas looks a little low, it's because I'm getting free gas. It was pretty dope. I shared a screenshot of it on X. You guys follow me on X. I'll show you. I'll link to my I link to X, my personal X, in all of my videos. So if at any point you want to come and join the conversation over on Twitter, X, you know, come and do that. But I ended up just last week, I blew a tire, and I like to replace my tires in sets at minimum 2. So I replaced 2 tires, and the tire that you just saw me blow again, right? This is a new tire a week later. and it's 100% my fault. Before I rolled over something, act of God, what can you do? But this time, when I was reversing and going forward, I hit a drain, and it's a metal drain, very sharp, and that's how it sliced into it. And I can patch a tire, but you can't patch the sidewall of a tire. That's dangerous. Don't do that. So I went to the tire shop, and I have one new tire on the front, and I have two old tires in the back, and I know one of the old tires has a slow leak, which is why I was spending a lot of money on air in January and February. Very slow leak. But I was like, all right, I I just bit the bullet and bought three tires. So I got three tires for $386.46. So now I know that every single tire on my car is brand new, except for one tire that's like a week older than the rest. But that's okay. My tires, if they don't get punctured by something, in fact, I've never had to replace tires because they're too worn. Like sometimes they've gotten close, but my tires have generally lasted over 40, 50,000 miles. If you're getting rotations and alignments and all that regularly, you can make your tires last very, very long. But when I buy tires, I buy the cheapest tire available because of that, right? I'm more likely to puncture my tires than I am to wear my tires down. So also I want to say, I thought I had a suspension problem in my car. My car would make noises when it goes over certain bumps and the hills and whatever. When I got new tires, the noise that I was hearing went away. So I'm happy that solved that problem. And yeah, tire problems. I forgot to mention it. I don't know how I oversaw that, but here we are. I'm proud that I stuck with it and pushed through. We'll jump back over to the chat. Is this the chat? That's not the chat. This is the chat. 100K delivery driver says, what you make total for the week? So yeah, you probably saw it by now. $2,388.13. I need to edit my spreadsheet so that it can have weekly breakdowns in it. I need to add weekly breakdowns, and I need to add a way for me to put in my door-to-door time. So those two things I want to work on. But I'm so busy right now. I have so many projects that I have to do. Damien says, looking forward to your financial retirement video, Tristan. that'll be in like 10 years. Uh, maybe we'll see. I have something big planned for you guys next month, and your comment makes me want to tell you guys, but I'm not going to tell you guys. 100K delivery driver says $3,338.90 in like 82 hours door to door last week. Use stride tax and just calculate miles and time door to door by just starting when you leave the house and when you go home. Yeah, no, you're correct. I just haven't. I typically am better at that. I just didn't do a great job. I'd rather calculate my miles myself. Technology goes wrong. If I'm gonna get audited and I make a mistake, I want the mistake to be my mistake, and I'd rather just use my odometer. I feel like there's nothing more accurate than an odometer. Even GPS can be inaccurate with things, so I'd rather just use my odometer. William says, how many miles you put on for that 3K? I guess I can tell you. Let's see. See this, and this is the problem with my spreadsheet. It doesn't really break down for week to week. But when did last week start? Oh, I'm trying to look at my calendar. Last week started on the 4th, so we know this is the 4th. So this is the sum right here. You guys, I guess I gotta zoom in. So because I highlighted that, it showed. Hopefully, is that the like? Yeah. That should be since the 4th. So 1,427 miles, which includes personal miles as well. Yeah, I'm just confirming that this is the actual sum. Yeah. So from the 4th until here, 1,427 miles to make the 2,000. To make the dang, my numbers are all over the place. To make the $2,388. It's not bad, right? Not bad. It's not $2 per mile. It's like 1.5 dollars per mile. $1.5 per mile. It's pretty good. Mike B says, is it bad to only drive when other people aren't there? I start normally at 10 p.m. and just work till I make $100. Sometimes that's 3 hours, sometimes 5. I don't think it's bad. Generally speaking, when I'm not trying to do the most, and right now I'm literally trying to make $10,000 this month, so I'm trying to do the most. If I were to only work when people aren't on the road, I'm not going to hit that. But the best time to work are when other people aren't on the road. I probably wouldn't start at 10 p.m. I probably start like as soon as traffic ends in your city, because what happens is when traffic starts to break up, there's still a lot of good bonuses on the map that you can go and pick up. So, but traffic isn't bad, right? So I'll start like around 7, 6:37. Traffic kind of breaks up around 6:15, 6:30. So that's when I'll start. And then on top of that, I live in the opposite direction of traffic. So traffic, if I live in the north, traffic is heading northbound. I know that when I'm picking up passengers as I'm heading down to south, I'm not going to really have traffic like that anyways. So that's when I would start. Um, if your goal is to make $100 and then call it quits, that's fine. You know, I would just say pick the time of day that's gonna make you that $100 the fastest. It could be early in the morning or it could be later at night. So you just gotta play around with it. I don't think it's bad that you have a goal and you're picking what you believe to be the best time to go and make it. That's fine. General says that market is insane compared to Indiana. Top drivers average 1,200 week, not including the NBA All Star weekend. Okay, so I forgot to show how much money other drivers made because I want to respond to that. I have a good response to that. Give me a second to pull it up. I'm going to show you guys how much other drivers made in various markets last week. Because a lot of people say my market is great, and last week it was great. Not even going to front on it. But I don't think I'm in the best market. I definitely think maybe I'm in the top 15, top 20, but I think there are other markets that are better than mine. And I'm going to just show you kind of like why I think that. Okay, good. Okay, so this is the Solo app. Solo app is available as an app. It's in the description of all my videos. Hopefully it's in the description of this video as well. But it shows you what people are making in your market and in other markets. So this is for Charleston. And I'm gonna go to the leaderboard. This is me. My picture's there now. So if you guys look at the rankings, you should be able to see my face. It says I made $0, and that's not true. But whatever. Let's go to last week. It's not as accurate. The time I made like $700 on Sunday, and it solo updates sometime on Sunday, so it doesn't capture everything. But you can see NH Nasef. This is a driver in my market. He made $2,472. Now, he just came back in town. Nasef, he leaves when it's slow and he comes back when it's busy just to work. And you can see like the average driver in my market typically is making 1,500, 1,200, and then that's it. No matter how busy or slow it is, that is their average. So it's not it's difficult to say that drivers in my market usually make 1,200, but we don't really know how many hours they're working or if they're trying to make more than that. I suspect, like if I were to change this from Charleston to all metros, you can see there's somewhere in Denver, $3,214, New York City, $2,664, Dallas, Texas. Like so many more people clocked in Atlanta, San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, Denver, Columbia, Rochester, a couple of San Francisco's in here, Austin. Looking at your market and seeing someone who's made $1,200 only tells you that it's possible to make $1,200. It doesn't tell you what the max possibility is, right? So we can see that from my Charleston market, based off of what Nasef made, he made $2,472. It is possible at maximum to make that much amount of money. But you also saw that, I took 2 days off. If I worked those 2 days, I could have cracked 3,000. So don't use solo to determine what's like possible at maximum in your market. It should be used to determine what is possible at minimum. So don't think that just because the max driver made 1,200 in your market, that's the maximum that is possible. That don't do that. You're gonna box yourself in a way that you shouldn't be. I'm just scrolling a little bit. So so yeah, if you guys have a specific market you want me to look in, I'll look at a couple, but I'm not gonna stay too long on this one. A general says bad is relative to whatever your personal goals are. That's sort of fair. That's sort of fair. William says not bad. Damien says appreciate your meticulous breakdowns of financials. I appreciate you for appreciating me. Thank you. Gilbert says I have invested in 2 sets on standby. I'm assuming you're talking about two cars on standby. I don't know what you're talking about. Give me some clarification if you can. Mike B says if lose yourself was playing in the background, that shirt would get a million views. It might get a million views. It would also be taken down for copyright. But you know what? That I can see it. I can see it. I'll play around and I'll throw one up and see what it does. It might be says needs to get road hazard insurance. Um, I've actually used Lyft's tow service or whatever it is. It's free. You can use it twice up to 90 days. And I use them when I need them. The first time I popped my tire last week, well, the week before last week, I had to pull over on the side of a hill, a dirt hill, and the jack that I had was not going to do the job. My car was going to tip over. I knew it. So I used the Lyft service. They brought a guy out and he changed my tire for me using the real heavy duty jack with the lever. So in instances like that, I'll do it, but it's generally faster to do it myself. Unless you're talking about something else. Unless road hazard insurance means they'll replace my tire or something like that. You know what? Let's see what he's talking about. Let me make sure I'm getting the full understanding. Let's use Bard, which is AI. I have to say that Gemini may display inaccurate information, including about people. So double check the response. But AI is a really easy way for me to disseminate information. So let's just say, what is roadside hazard insurance? Let's see what it says. Can't spell. Roadside hazard insurance, more accurately called roadside hazard protection or a road hazard warranty, is a specific type of coverage designed to protect your tires from unexpected damage. Okay, learning something new today. So it's not traditional insurance. It's a warranty often purchased when you buy new tires that covers repair or replacement costs if your tire encounters certain damage. So the certain damage is going to be important here. Let's see what it covers. Puncture from nails, screws, etc. Okay, I'm already on board. That's typically what happens to my tires. Pothole damage. There are a lot of potholes in my city, but I don't typically lose a tire over them. But nice to know. Bruising or breaks caused by debris on the road. Okay, this might be worth it. I'm gonna have to look into how much it costs. But here's what's not covered. Typical wear and tear, damage due to negligence like off-roading, or issues arising from improper tire installation. That's fine. The people I buy my tires to, they have warranties that cover this. So if it's typical wear and tear and something happens to the tire before the expiration date, which is like 30,000, then they'll replace it. So I think that's fine that it doesn't cover those things. Let's see what the average cost is. What is the cost? The cost of road hazard protection varies depending on several factors. All right, come on, just give me an estimate. Expect to pay around 10 to 15% of the tire's individual costs. For a $150 tire, the warranty might cost $15 to $22.50. That's not bad. That's actually, yeah, I'm gonna have to like look into getting this. This is actually an excellent point that was just brought up. Let me give the proper props. Who said this? Might be. Super shout out, bro. This is really good information. So that I might just have to make a specific video covering this. This is really important, and I wish I knew about it before. Because yeah, that would have covered the two tires that I lost over the last 2 weeks, and I wouldn't have had to spend $348 to get new sets of tires. So I would have eventually, but if, the more I can prolong the expenses and get longer life out of my tires, the better. So, bro, shout out to you. That's huge. That's huge. I got to make a dedicated video about that. General says, I'm in my second month renting with Lyft. Got in an accident out in the country off an airport trip. Car was totaled from driver's side impact, but I walked away unscathed, so did passenger. Fantastic. I hope it wasn't your fault. Um, Renting with Lyft sucks, but I think that in your scenario, it's the best thing that you could have done. What kind of car are you going to get? How much money are you going to get from your insurance? Uh, how much did you owe on the car? How much was the car worth? And hopefully you buy a Prius. We're going to be talking about Priuses today, so William says, "Yep, never box yourself." I agree. Don't box yourself. And I'm assuming you mean boxing, like box BOX space IN, not BOXING, guys. William says, "Can you look for the Cleveland market?" I'll take a look. I'm gonna do them all at once. I see someone wants Tampa. Just moved there from New York, and the market here sucks. Tampa, I think, is a tourist destination. You might have your best luck during summer or when football season's in play. But I'll take a look. I know Tampa also has like their in-house rideshare company, like that's government based, that uses Teslas, that drives you around that river that's over there. I've been there once. It's nice out there. So I'll look at Tampa. I'll look at my memory. My memory's so bad. Cleveland. Let me just do it now because I'm just gonna forget. I'm gonna do Cleveland and then Tampa. Cleveland starts with the C. All right, so the top driver in Cleveland, Ohio, made $1,448. Number two made $1,418, and number three made $1,389. The number one driver just did DoorDash. I don't know what number two did. But yeah, it seems that you can make at least $1,448. And then what was the other one? Tampa, which is a T, which is at the bottom. I'm gonna be scrolling here for a while. I'm also from New York, by the way. I'm from Queens. So shout outs to you. Tampa. Ooh, Tampa, they put up some numbers. So you're saying that is a bad market, but last week, someone did $2,130. They almost made as much money as I made. And then the runner up, 1,787. And then at number three, he did some DoorDash, some Instacart, some Spark, $1,575. Some DoorDash at number four for $1,417. So what I like about solo is, yeah, it doesn't tell you how many hours they worked or what the strategy is, but it gives you an insight to let you know what the minimum possibility is. So for you to come here and tell me, I'm not like beating down on you, but if you're telling me that your market is bad and you're able to see that someone made $2,000 in the same exact market you're in, that says that you probably need to reevaluate your strategy. That's probably what it is. So I would take a look at that. And of course, we don't know how many hours these guys are working. These guys could be working 80 hours, making like $15 an hour. And maybe you don't want to do that. In that scenario, yes, I would still say your market is bad, but probably not the case. But it is your job to figure out the difference, to figure out what these guys are doing to make that and why you're not making that. Join, if you look for a Tampa Uber and Lyft Facebook group. Just go in there, see what they're talking about, see what they're saying. Not everyone is like open, transparent with how much money they're making. They can be very stingy on information because you are their competition. But not everyone is like that. I'm obviously not like that. There's a bunch of people who watch this who live in Charleston where when I teach them something, it can negatively impact me because they are my competition. But start going out there, get some information, try some different things, see what you can do to bridge that gap between what you think you should be making and what these other guys are making. Here's the verdict says, can you do audits on Tampa? I just did that for you. Why does it keep scrolling like that? General says Tampa was in the top 15 on that list you just had up. Look at you paying attention. I didn't even realize that. Honestly, was thinking about moving back. There's a ton of events plus Ybor City, Riverview, Brandon, plenty of suburbs and places. William says, yes, I always have tire warranties. It's like $50 for 4 sets if there's 50. And if there's $50, $50 to $60 on the tire. Yeah. So that's new news to me. I got brand new tires. Maybe it's not too late to see if I can get them on warranty. I'll try, but I might just have to wait till the next set of tires. But man, that's huge, bro. That's huge. William says, looking to extended warranty, they save a lot of money in the long run. 100K delivery driver says, whoever is in Tampa, hit me up. I work in St. Petersburg, made $3,338.90 last week. That's another crazy thing about Solo is that it doesn't show everyone, only the people who have it. So there, it's very possible that there are people in my market that made more money, like significantly more money than me, but we just don't have access to that information. So that's something that you need to be aware of as well. Journal says, bro, I've been looking into the Prius after watching you cover them. It was my fault though. Avoiding the air just went to the ditch. Act of God, cost of doing business. It happens. Hopefully they give you some money towards it. I do think the Prius is, the best car, especially the best used car. Don't get a new Prius. I'm very team used, but I need to do an analysis on comparing the used Prius to the used Tesla because the used Tesla prices have come down. You were talking about like under $20,000, which is it's still high, but there's some aspects of having the Tesla that can maybe make up for it. I need to do a deeper dive into it. We are going to talk a little bit comparing new Tesla to used again, but just because a commenter was trying to justify why his his new Tesla was such a great investment. So I just kind of want to break down the points that he made. Some of them are good points. Some of them aren't that great. So we're gonna go through that after Minneapolis. William says moved out permanently after the city in 2009 and stayed in Ohio around family since 2010. Love it here and the cost of living is so cheap. Yeah, if you can make it in New York City, you can make it anywhere. That's how I feel. I'm in Charleston and people might complain about this, they might complain about that, but to me, everywhere in the world is cheap except Hawaii, California, and New York and Florida. Sometimes Florida. So Jamie says, what's the most miles you can drive in a day? The most miles I have driven in a day, I think it's like 700, 800 maybe. I used to do a lot of long rides when they were worth it, and very easy to rack up eight that in a day. I've also driven from Charleston to New York City, which I think is like 800 to 1,000 miles. I've done that in a day, no sleep, 12 hours. I'm really good at staying awake, so I can. It's easy. It's easy for me. Okay, it was fun chatting with you guys. I'll hop back in here. I hop back into the comments after every set of topics, and now we're gonna start talking about Minnesota. So let's do this. What? No. How do you feel about the wage changes in Minnesota? I spelled that wrong. Minnesota. Yes. All right. So I'm gonna. This is the discussion question. Share your opinions, and hopefully by the time that I come back from reading and discussing Minnesota, oh my god, you see how this heart is blocking me from like doing things? It's so annoying. Stress. I'll come back and I'll read them, and we'll talk through them. So let's go over here. Okay. So this is from the Minnesota Reformer, and it's titled Minneapolis passes Uber and Lyft minimum pay ordinance with a veto proof majority. Veto proof. We'll talk about that. But before I get started, I want to give a disclaimer. Just because I'm about to talk about what I think will happen doesn't mean that that's what I want to happen. I try to be as neutral as possible. I'm a human, so there will be some biases that creep in. However, this isn't a conversation about what I want to happen. This is a conversation about what I think will happen based off of, statistics or historical data. So don't think that I'm on team Uber or I'm on team Lyft or I'm on team Minneapolis or I'm on team driver or I'm on team that just because I think something will happen. So I want to start with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to read. I'll commentate as I read. Um, I have some points that I'm going to make, and I'm also going to make some predictions about what I think will happen, not based off of what I want, but based off of what I've seen, Okay. Ignoring threats that Uber and Lyft will pull out of Minneapolis and perhaps the entire state, the Minneapolis City Council passed an ordinance hiking driver pay with a veto proof 9-4 vote on Thursday. I don't think it's veto proof. Take that with a grain of salt because it's already been vetoed. Mayor Jacob Frey said ahead of the vote that he would veto the ordinance just as he did last year when the council passed an ordinance with the same pay rates of $1.40 per mile and 51 cents per minute, plus increases alongside the city minimum wage. Since then, voters have elected a large progressive majority capable of overriding the mayor. I don't really know how that works, but I do know it's currently vetoed, and I'll have to do some more digging. But I have, if you're new here, I have been following this for months. Like at least once a week, uh, once a month since like September. I've been talking about this, and it's important for me to give you a quick recap of what has happened up until this moment because this happened last week, and it's very important to know the backstory because not knowing the backstory can shape your opinion to be different than knowing the backstory. So initially, the governor or the mayor they vetoed this wage change because they wanted to have more time to do a study in order to figure out what the increases should be. So the mayor slash governor, both of them, they both agree that there does need to be a change. As for how much of a change it should be, they thought it was best to do a study to figure that out. I agree with that. As someone who is in charge of the government facilitation of your city or state, I think it is important to make decisions based off of having as much information as possible, right? And as a rideshare driver, I can understand why you don't feel that way. You want as much money as possible. Like I get that. That's human nature. But responsibly speaking, I think it's acceptable that they should wait on a study, right? Um, Not a huge fan of government, generally speaking. They can be deceptive and take advantage of people, but I think it's fair to make decisions based off of data instead of decisions based off of arbitrary feelings. So let's continue. The mayor and his allies on the council urged the majority to delay the vote for 2 weeks since the State Department of Labor and Industry is set to release a first of its kind report on Friday. So it is important to notice or to realize that the vote was done the day before the state was set to release that information. To me, this is very, very similar to how Biden decided to give out stimulus checks right before primaries. They're essentially buying our votes or trying to control the narrative. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it per se, but you have to distinguish what's happening. The the council decided to vote the day before information was going to be released about what wages, look like and what they should be. I think that if you're on the council and you want you to increase the wages, that's a good play. It's a good chess move. They're playing chess, not checkers. And what it does is it allows the public to see who's playing where, right? By having the vote before the study comes out, you're allowing people to draw lines in the sand about what side they stand on before the information comes out. So, very smart move by them, but very important to understand that they could have waited a week to see what the report says and then make a determination. Very important to understand that. So the study analyzes all 19 million trips taken on the two apps in Minnesota in 2022. 2023 will be better data because things can change so drastically year to year. So they do get negatively pinged for that. Using 2022 is not the best time to use. They definitely need to use 2023. So that report is expected to make recommendations on minimum pay rates for drivers in the Twin Cities metro area and greater Minnesota read that again. That report is expected to make recommendations on minimum pay rates for drivers in the Twin Cities metro area and greater Minnesota to ensure they earn at least minimum wage. The analyst is also expected to recommend how to boost pay without pushing prices so high that people who rely on the apps can no longer afford them. I think that is important. Um, I'm kind of like split. I know Lyft is struggling with the profitability, but I know Uber is doing very well. And I don't think that 100% of any wage increase should be put on the passenger. I think Uber needs to eat part of that. and I also would like to start addressing how much they're paying for insurance. But that's we're not gonna that's a whole nother video. We're not gonna talk about the insurance right now. The council did agree to push back the effective date of the ordinance if enacted 1 month to May 1st to give other companies time to enter the market should Uber and Lyft pull out. So if you're just kind of jumping into what's happening, Uber and Lyft since last year have said, yo, if this bill passes, bye. And they had done this before. They did this in Austin, but they eventually came back. Now, the MOLDA, which is the name of the organization that's pushing these driver ordinance pays and whatever, they have said that they have other companies lined up if Uber and Lyft skedaddle, right? I have a cynical side in me where I want to see how all of this plays out just to observe it. But real people's lives are at risk here. Their income is at risk. So, I have to sideline that cynical side of me. But to me, it's just they're playing chicken. That's what it feels like. If the Mulder Group have people or companies, entities that will replace Uber and Lyft in a heartbeat, instead of forcing Uber and Lyft to try and pay you more, why not just start working with them? Why not just start making them the primary like entity in the region? Like I know there's gonna be like challenges to face with that, but if those companies are so great, then just work with them now. Start building up that presence now instead of waiting till May. I don't know. Maybe they feel like it'll weaken their bargaining chips, which in my brain it should do the opposite. It should strengthen their bargaining chips. So to me, it kind of just feels like chicken. Originally, the ordinance was going to go into effect in April 1st. Um, but Uber and Lyft has said they would leave if the mayor or governor didn't veto it. So I think it's playing chicken. I think they're all full of talk. I think there's a degree of talk from Uber and Lyft too. So so from both parties. So I think both parties are just playing chicken. The ordinance lead author, Councilmember Robin Wansley, said there was no reason to delay passing the ordinance itself and urged her colleagues to press on. Rip the band-aid off, just do it. Disagree. There is a perfect reason to delay passing the ordinance by at least a week, right? If it doesn't even go into effect until April, March, May, until May, because they moved it back a month, then you should wait. A bipartisan person would wait, have the information. And I'm going to show you some of the information, and they should have just waited, but we'll get to that in a second. Eid Ali, president of the Minnesota Uber Lyft Drivers Association, that's what MULD stands for, MULD. He was on the Rideshare Guys podcast like 2 weeks ago. He heralded the vote, saying it was a long time coming for drivers who've long complained of meager and unpredictable wages. It was absolutely a great day. It was a historic day. It's a day we've been waiting for quite some time, Ali said. Drivers have been pressing lawmakers for more than a year to enact minimum pay standards, and they celebrated victory twice before, only to face disappointment. So, personal opinion. I think that if Uber and Lyft are left unchecked, it can get real bad. We've seen the trend that they're decreasing pay over time. In certain markets, not every just because I'm doing well in my market doesn't mean I assume everyone's doing well in their market. But there does need to be some level of regulation, and I'm not a big fan of government intervention. Too much government intervention usually creates new problems that were not foreseen by those who wanted the intervention. So I do think a minimum pay standard should be in place for certain large cities, and I just don't necessarily agree with how much that they're asking for or that they wanted. So I'll say that up front, but we'll talk more about that in a second. First, government Tim Walz vetoed a minimum wage bill after Uber threatened to curtail services. Walz ordered the Department of Labor and Industry to conduct a study and create a task force of drivers and company representatives and stakeholders to make recommendations. I think this is good. This is a good decision. Now, people can still manipulate things like this depending on their agenda. But let's assume, Tim is a good guy. He just wants the best for everyone involved because the people that live in his state aren't just rideshare drivers. They're also people who take rideshare, So I think I don't see why I'm just pro. Give me as much information as possible before making a decision. I'll always be pro that. Then came a veto in August after Lyft threatened to pull out of the city. Finally, the governor's task force adjourned without making a recommendation on minimum pay in December. Uber and Lyft on Thursday this is last week Thursday, renewed their threats to pull out of Minneapolis passenger service if the ordinance takes effect. Uber's delivery service, Uber Eats, is not covered by the ordinance and will not be affected. Man, my cynicism here is saying that if this happens and it's just Uber Eats in there, Uber Eats is going to be super oversaturated. It'll be interesting to watch. Uber said it supported a statewide guarantee of $35 an hour earnings for the state's roughly 7,300 drivers, and Lyft also urged a statewide policy. It doesn't make it clear here, but I'm assuming that is based on active time. So that means the time spent from when you get a ride to when you pick up a passenger and drop off a passenger. That's what they're saying would be $35 an hour minimum. I think that's on the surface, I think that's okay if your market isn't saturated. If you're spending a lot of time, this is why having access to online time versus active time is important and not just looking at active time. Because if I'm online for 10 hours and let me pull the calculator out. It'll make more sense with the calculator. Okay, so I'm online for 10 hours. And out of that 10 hours, I'm only active for 5 hours. So 5 times 35, that would be $175 for 5 hours of active time. But if we divide that number by 10, right? For the 10 hours that I was online for, I only made $17.50 per hour for time that I was actively trying to work, you know? Like I'm online looking for rides, but if there's a huge downtime, then this is gonna suck. Now, if drivers figure out how to make their active time as close to their online time as possible, that $35 is fantastic. It's fantastic. I made more than that this week, but during a slow period, that's a fantastic number. I think, and that's minimum, right? We're not saying that's the maximum that they're gonna make. We're saying that this is the minimum that they would get, and I think that's a good place. It's not even the governor saying he supports this. It's Uber saying they support this. I think this is very fair and very reasonable. If you can bridge the gap between online and active time. For the second time in less than a year, the bill's sponsors have willingly chosen to ignore offers to collaborate instead of choosing to rush through the most extreme figures possible. We implore Mayor Frey to veto this legislation and instead join our effort to pass a statewide minimum earnings standard that can balance the needs of all Lyft, spokesman CJ McKinley said in a statement. So as I'm reading this, so far, I'm kind of on the side of the government here. They're being reasonable, which is shocking in my brain. The two companies have also rolled out policies in the past year aimed at quelling dissatisfaction from their drivers and impatience from lawmakers. For example, Uber and Lyft now guarantee drivers earn at least $5 on every ride in Minneapolis, and Lyft said it committed to paying drivers at least 70% of what riders pay on a weekly basis after external fees. I will quickly address this. If you have not heard me rant about 70%, I won't do it very long, but the 70% thing, we don't know what external fees is. It could be arbitrary. They say majority of it goes to insurance, but they don't break down what external fees actually are, and it's problematic. So yeah, sure, they're giving 70% to drivers after external fees, but in their own press release, they said only less than 15% of drivers made less than that in 2023. It's just PR. Sure, it's great that you're helping uh, raise the floor by 15%, not that much, but they knew what they were doing. They put this out a couple weeks before they knew this was happening. They just want to make this a talking point. This is more PR related than it is to actually change related. Now, I am happy that they're giving us more information. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, more information is always better, but they're not giving us the information that's really important. You're blaming external fees, but you're not telling us the breakdown of those external fees. So just want to talk about that. Councilmember Jamal Osman, who co-authored the ordinance, said passing it was a matter of protecting immigrant workers. I keep seeing this and I don't understand the correlation, but let's continue. We have heard the fear of Uber leaving and the world is going to end. Osmond said during Thursday's hearing, it is okay to use the cheap labor of the immigrant community. Are we okay that Uber is staying if they continue to use the cheap labor on the back of the immigrant community? Is he saying that like they're able to keep prices low because immigrants who come here don't mind it? Is that what he's saying? Is majority of the drivers immigrants? Like I feel like there is some political push that's going on behind the scene to turn this into an immigrant thing. I do know that there are some immigrant factors that are playing a role in some communities, not specifically Minnesota, but there are some immigrant places that accounts are being sold to illegal immigrants and they're just taking whatever. You know, it's not fair that people who aren't the people who the apps say they are doing things. I think that needs to be addressed. But I think it's a far cry to use immigrants as the poster boy for this issue. The poster person for this issue is anyone who's an American, whether um, born here or naturalized or legal. That's who this should be about. It's about the people who pay taxes here, and whether if the immigrant is someone who pays taxes here, that's fine, and they are included in the group of who should be the poster boy for this. And I don't understand why highlighting immigrants is it. I'm not an immigrant, but I'm part of this battle. I'm a driver, so it's like I don't understand why they're trying to make that connection. Whatever. I'm going to move on from it. Setting minimum pay isn't as easy as deciding to support immigrant workers over billion-dollar corporations, however. In fact, the largely East African immigrant group of drivers advocating for minimum pay has fissured several times in recent months over the question of minimum pay. Interesting. Some supported policymakers pushing forward with higher rates despite vetoes and threats from the companies, believing Uber and Lyft are bluffing and have plenty of profit to share with their workforce. Others wish lawmakers would have passed rates more acceptable to the companies, which would have been in place for months now and are less likely to demand for rides. This is important. We're gonna look at this more in depth when we're done with this article. But a lot of people think that changes can come for free. And I don't mean just that as a monetary value. I mean that when they want change, they think that to implement change, there will be no negative associated with that change. And that's not true. And I have some examples for that. And it's not that I want it to be true, but it's the law of supply and demand. So I think I sit with these drivers. If I were there in Minnesota, this is probably where I would sit, where hey, these demands or the counterpoints by Uber, by the governor, by the mayor, these are still significantly better than what we're dealing with right now, and they seem to be a lot more reasonable. We should do this. If you change things too much in one direction, the negatives that can be born from it, also increase. The likelihood increases. So I do think that generally speaking, a slower approach to minimum wage increases is important because it gives you time to figure out what will happen, what might happen while slowly increasing. And there have been places that have successfully done this, like New York City. And I'll touch on that in a second. But that's just something I want you to think about. At a news conference on Wednesday, Frey said his proposal of $1.20 per mile and 35 cents per minute would double driver pay. Double driver pay, and was acceptable to the companies. He said he would have signed an ordinance last year if it had come up to him with lower pay rates. Sorry. The average driver right now makes about 84 cents per mile across America, across the board. It's not double the average, but I guess it's double for Minnesota. $1.20 per mile. That's pretty good. And that's the minimum, right? We're not saying that's the maximum you can earn. That's the minimum. In January, let me see. Did I close it? I did not close it. It's right here. In January, I averaged 131. That's okay. In February, I averaged $1.18 per mile. So I would have made even more money under their new ordinance even though that ordinance isn't as much as what they want. I think they're being greedy. I'm sorry. I feel like I know I'm gonna get comments when I cut this video up and put it out from people saying I'm a Lyft shill, Uber shill, or I'm for the company. I'm for fairness, and I think that this is a very fair proposal for today. Right? Will it be fair 5 years from now? Maybe not. But I think that according to today's market, this is a very fair proposal, and they could have enacted this a year ago. I think the government's being very fair. I think Uber is being fair. But I think Uber's only being fair because the government is forcing them to do something. But I think that this is fair. All right, let's go back. This is what public service is all about. It's about balancing a bunch of different interests for the sake of the ecosystem that is the city of Minneapolis. The ordinance authors say Frey's proposal is too low and doesn't guarantee drivers would earn the city's minimum wage of $15.57, according to a city analysis. That estimate isn't based on direct, unrestricted access to the rideshare data like the state report will be. Instead, it's based on surveys and other publicly available information. So they're not using accurate information to make their decisions on what will be what. Instead, they could have just waited a day and had access to that actual information. The new ordinance was designed under the assumption that drivers will need to spend $1.40 per mile on vehicle costs like gas, repairs, insurance, and other expenses. That's really high. I don't know what kind of cars they're driving. I feel like they're driving Bentleys out there to have that kind of level of expenses. Here's my per mile expenses for February: 23 cents per mile. They think they need $1.23 per mile. Like that's not even like what? Like what? What was it in January for me? 26 cents per mile. March right now, with me having to buy 4 new tires, it's still 26 cents per mile. They're tripping. They're tripping. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. They have to be driving Bentleys. That's it. Their car must cost $300,000, and their gas must be the same thing. I don't understand how they decided that $1.40 per mile on vehicle costs. There's no way. They also say, and that drivers will have passengers in the car for 50% of the time they're logged onto the app, and therefore will have to earn 51 cents per minute to earn the city's minimum wage. The estimate does not account for the possibility of demand declining if the price of rides more than doubled for customers, as Lyft said it would under the rates passed by the council. During Thursday's hearing, Wansley said she wasn't persuaded by arguments that demand could be affected. That's naivism. Naivety? That's naivety. And I have some. I'm gonna back this up in a second. I have some use cases that I'm gonna share. There's no evidence that driver compensation increases were actually responsible for price increases. Yikes. Wansley said, pointing to a memo sent to the council by city staff. But that memo says increasing labor costs through minimum pay regulations do affect customer costs, although it does note that companies don't necessarily have to pass the entire cost onto customers. That's what I just said earlier. All right. I don't need to read more into that specific part, but there are two cities that have implemented a minimum wage floor that I want to look at. One is Seattle and one is New York. We're going to look at Seattle first. So, all right, this is not what I want. Give me a second. Hope I didn't lose it. Give me a second, guys. Found it. Okay. Okay, so this is Gemini. I'm going to read it that Gemini may display inaccurate information, including about people, so double check its response, and we will double check these responses. So I asked it, how did the wage change affect drivers in Seattle? And it says that a study by the University of Washington found that Seattle implemented a minimum wage for rideshare drivers. Their overall earnings decreased due to reduced work hours. Some drivers ended up making less than before the wage increase. I'm gonna quickly explain kind of why that is. Supply and demand, right? These drivers are paid more for active time now, but because the prices were increased, less people have been ordering food. This is for food delivery. Less people have been ordering food, which decreases the amount of work available to everyone. So, yes, while someone has work, they are paid more. But overall, if there's less work, then there's no money to be made. So there is a balance between supply and demand. Now, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any floor implemented. I'm saying that we need to do it with as much accurate information as possible because they have real world ramifications on everything, right? Every reaction, every action has a reaction, and we need to stop pretending like it doesn't. And that's why I'm upset with some of these council members who are making decisions thinking that there will be no negative ramifications. Pay us as much as we're telling you to pay us because there's no negative consequences. There is. And just because there are negative consequences doesn't mean that we shouldn't implement some of these changes. It just means we need to be way more cautious about how aggressively we implement these things. You might be thinking, oh, this is Gemini. She doesn't know what it's talking about. Well, guess what? I have a video from a city council meeting in which drivers are talking about how the bill has affected them. Let me go and find that. We're gonna go through about 3 people. I think they have like 30 seconds each to talk. I gotta slow it down. I have it on 2 times speed. Okay, here we go.
Council members, my name is Bailey Medillo, and I'm a resident of District 2. I am a frequent customer of food delivery services such as DoorDash and Uber Eats, and I'm here to voice my strong support for app-based worker minimum pay law that went into effect last month. Recently, we as a community have come to notice that corporations like DoorDash are tacking on a regulatory response fee in direct response to the minimum wage pay law, which protects workers. However, it's quite clear that this response is not regulatory in nature, it is in fact retaliatory. When corporations take steps to protect their bottom line over worker compensation, our services suffer. We are not out of the pandemic, and accessible food services are more important than ever, even more so for people with chronic mobility issues like myself. Food delivery goes from being an issue of access to a lifeline. Minimum wage is good and necessary. These corporations' fees are backwards and harmful. Do something about that instead. And also, all of our issues are intimately connected. We can care about this and care about immigrants and refugees and everything that's going on in the world. Thank you.
Okay, so when you hear that bell, that means they have 10 seconds left to talk. So she's not a driver, but I did want to include her perspective because her perspective as a customer is important. I do think that Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, they do retaliatory things, as she does say, when laws are passed. And even though I disagree that, they shouldn't do that, right? I think it's evil. I think it's not great. They're playing like dirty. They uh, I think it's bad, right? That's what I'm trying to say. But I'm also trying to say they play bad. So if we make changes that are too far in one direction, they're gonna make us pay for it. And now whether it's illegal, whether it's bad, whether this or that isn't my point. My point is that this is what is happening, right? They've increased prices. This person believes that they didn't need to increase the prices the way they have, and this person is suffering as a result of it. So I did want to include that point in this, but the next 2 that we're going to watch are from actual drivers.
John, followed by Gary.
I am here because the pay up bill is not only not working, but is causing harm.
Hold on. Is that on?
I did not want to change the pay model. We knew this bill would fail. Under the pay up bill, we are paid 44 cents per active minute, which means the slower we work, the more we get paid. This is terrible for customers. Last week, I worked 72 hours and made $477. That's $7 an hour. That is a hardship for me, but I am super fortunate because I have options. There's a significant number of delivery workers who don't have the agency to come here and speak for themselves. They are not conventionally employable, and this type of work keeps them from being housing insecure. The communications director at Working Washington posted last week that it would be poor policymaking to repeal the pay-up bill. I ask you, how many workers need to become homeless before it is good policymaking to repeal? The longer you wait, the more people will be harmed. Timeline matters. Corporations that have never made a profit do not volunteer to pay workers more. It is irresponsible to think that they would.
That was a very mild take. It's okay. He said he worked 70 hours and made $400 and change. If that's true, right? I'll say that the possibility that some of these people are paid actors does exist, but I don't think it's likely. I'm not. If you think that's the case, I'm gonna have to see some proof. Um, so have some grains of salt when you're watching this. But from what I've looked on the internet, this is kind of what everyone is feeling. The pay it up law passed, I think, like in January, and we're starting to see the ramifications of it. This city hall meeting, whatever, this was 12 days ago. It's not that long ago. So there's one more.
Following John was Gary, followed by Justin Captis.
Good afternoon. I trust in your consideration for repealing this gig ordinance again. There were several passionate moments concerning the gig ordinance last week on the local news. Restaurants I go to every day still express their concern. Some have no idea what is going on, just that they're down 50% or whatever percent, throw out a number. To me,
okay, so right there, he's just saying that restaurants' orders for deliveries through DoorDash have gone down about 50%. These restaurants don't really understand why. And that's, a lot of people who aren't on social media probably just aren't even aware of what's happening. I picked up people from Minnesota in my city who I'm explaining to them what's happening because they're just not aware. So it's common that people who aren't rideshare drivers aren't aware of any of this, right? So that's just keep in mind, this isn't normal. This is just something that's huge in our small community.
The numbers I see as a boot on the ground, everyone is down. We simply need volume back. And
I will say, watch the reaction of this person back here who, as these drivers are getting up here and saying, yo, get rid of this law. This person back here supports the law, but thinks that, these companies are retaliating. So you can kind of see this person's uneasiness as these drivers are talking.
Drivers, couriers, restaurants, the well-off Amazon workers not ordering anymore, we are all affected with a capital A. This is not pretense of will there be an effect. That E is definitely lowercase. Why not move on? People say, well, like the restaurants, we love this craft and we are very passionate about it. If there's a mechanism to trigger this, I hope the accounting is done expeditiously. And again, I trust in your consideration for repealing this gig ordinance.
That's pretty much all that's worth watching that I've seen. More people might come up, but they start going heavy into immigration, and then I just don't understand the connection. And I feel like I'm missing part of that conversation. But yeah, so I just want to give you a little inside scoop at how other drivers and people are actually feeling about this, because I'm about to read a study, and it was important for me to make sure you have real people's perspective before I read the study, because this study is in part done by Uber. So, the whole police force investigating itself thing. But I'm not going to hide that from you guys. I'm going to let you know that it is what it is. This is from Medium, the impact of Seattle's driver and courier pay regulations. This is from Uber Under the Hood. So it's written by something controlled by Uber. It's been out since February 22nd. We're not going to read through all of it. I think it's just good enough for me to show you the graph. The important graph is here. Again, these numbers are from Uber. So, grain of salt. So this is the earnings per online hour, 2019 versus 2023. First, I want to say I'm disappointed that they used 2019 because 2019 is an anomaly, right? Pay was great during 2019. So comparing 2019 to 2023 is a little deceiving. However, there's still something we can grasp from this, right? So down here, it says the rest of the US. Compared to Seattle in 2019, Seattle was doing fantastic per online hour at the time. go Seattle. But now we look over here, we're seeing that the rest of the US has increased since 2019, which I think is cool if that's true, while Seattle has gone down since 2023. So, Seattle had two different ordinances that changed driver pay. One was before, like at the beginning of 2023, and one is January now. So they say that similar, after the introduction of pay up in January 2024, couriers are spending on average 30% more time waiting for delivery requests than before the ordinance went into effect. A third, 30%. We don't see a similar shift for couriers in other US markets. So that's the part I really want us to take away from this. Here's something that has changed in Seattle since this law has come out. And when we compare it to the rest of America, we haven't noticed that change. That's very important if you believe this. As a result, Seattle courier earnings during all hours online are flat to slightly down, albeit over a small sample period, which, the law went into effect January. From January till now is a small sample period. So we do need more time. We will continue looking at what's happening over there. So they're saying there's an alternative. I haven't read this deep into this article, so let's see what they're trying to sell us. There's a highlighted. Should I read this highlighted part? All right, so I'll read this highlighted part. It says, their city earning standards achieved one thing. They increased the pay of drivers and couriers for time spent on a trip. However, the resulting reduced demand has more than offset these increases. Not only did earning standards in Seattle fail to improve the welfare of earners, both standards actually hurt earners while having profoundly negative implications for merchants, restaurants, consumers, and vulnerable communities in Seattle. These outcomes were foreseeable and avoidable. There are better ways to successfully improve the lives of drivers and couriers. Okay, I actually want to know what they say, but I do also want to move on from this. Let me see if I can skim this. They're saying that this can best be achieved with compensation standards that are created with workers' voices at the forefront and not needlessly costly. These standards should apply across a pay period and incorporate reasonable estimates for the worker expenses. Estimates of cost should be localized to specific geographies. That's fine. That's fair. Okay, now I can stick too long with this, right? Because I said there are two cities that have implemented some kind of wage floor. We had Seattle, and now we have New York. Now I think so far, New York has the best system, but I have to explain why. So this is from Gemini. It says, while New York City's minimum wage rules did increase some driver earnings, the city's TNC license system acts as a key difference that affects how wage changes play out. The requirements for rideshare drivers in New York City to have a TNC plate creates artificial scarcity by limiting the number of drivers who can operate in the city. So with the TNC, I think there's only 70,000-ish plates. So there can only at any given time be 70,000 rideshare drivers. So what that does is, unlike Seattle, where they increase the minimum wage, that allows more people to come, right? It makes it so that more drivers are spending more time online. In addition to the fact that people are ordering less, right? So your supply of drivers is a bunch. You have a bunch of drivers now, and the amount of orders have decreased. But in New York City, even though they've enacted a minimum pay floor, because there's an artificial limit on how many people can even become drivers, it balances out. So if any city, major city, wants to enact something like this, you're gonna have to follow closer in New York City's footsteps than you would in Seattle's footsteps. You know, so like, can it be successful? Yes, it can. Are there other things you have to do? Yeah, you can't just stop here. So to be clear again, I'm not against minimum payment floors. I am against doing it haphazardly, because I'm not making this stuff up, guys. I didn't just wake up, write these articles myself to present to you a point that I want to make. No, I woke up, saw these articles. I have a general understanding of supply and demand from taking the course in college, which I hated it, but it's useful. It helps me understand that when you do something, something happens, and it's not always what you think it will be. So I guess that's kind of all I have to say on the whole Minnesota thing. Let me see what you guys are saying in the comments. Before I even read these comments, you know what will be fun? Let's look at how many people, let's look at what drivers are making in Minnesota. All the way in the M's, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N. Okay, so this is obviously before any changes. What week is this? This is for last week. The top driver made $1,981. Number two came in at 1,577, and number three came in at 1,489. Let's go back a week and just see what's up. If they let us, it's not gonna let us. All right, so there you have it. I would consider their market to be better than my market overall, but again, we don't know how much they're working, how many miles they're driving, hours, this, that, and the third. But the average Minneapolis driver seems to be making more money than the average Charleston driver. Of course, that doesn't adjust for cost of living and things like that. And I heard Minnesota has some crazy taxes, but taxes shouldn't matter too much as a rideshare driver. All right, so to the comments. William says, I need online time, not active. Active time could be $100, but then the next 6 hours is dead. I guess you're referring to my stats. I believe I need online time, not active. Online time, even online time can be deceiving because I can be offline and just in my car for an hour waiting for a bonus to pop up. Guys, I gotta use the bathroom again. I try to drink water so you guys aren't hearing my lips smack when I'm on the mic, but I gotta go. I have returned again. Whew, I'm coffeeed up and watered up. Okay. 100K delivery says Tampa market sucks. Driving downtown St. Pete and just do short trips on Lyft. It's lucrative. Here's the verdict. Frankie and Kaylee says, I'm in Minneapolis. Everyone Ubering is an immigrant besides about 5%. Okay, interesting. Very, very interesting. Frankie Kaylee says, also feel like I got excluded by that comment because I'm not an immigrant. Well, hello, 5%. William says, city drivers in my area is 80 to 20 immigrants and mostly Ukrainian, Russians, and Middle Eastern. Suburban drivers are seniors, ladies, and newbies that's driving all through the region. That's my observation in my market. I need to leave the East Coast because I don't have anything resembling those breakdowns in my city. William says, that's too low. $1.25 per mile, 40 cents a minute. Base fare, $8, and the rest, what they got. Frankie and Haley says, also, the ordinance is only inside the downtown city limits, not the whole metro. While it is true that the ordinance for the downtown is different than the ordinance for the entire state, there is still an ordinance for both the city and entire state. Frankie says, outside the city limits is 60 cents a mile. So just to make sure I'm not wrong, I am going to do a quick Google search. I don't want to be wrong. Let's do it here. What was the proposed ordinance for Minnesota and Minneapolis? I should have put Rideshare in there. Let's see if it's smart enough to figure it out. Let me see if I can make this. How much per mile for? Let's just see if it can figure it out from there. So 140, 20. So statewide. Statewide recommended at least 89 cents to 121 per mile in the Twin Cities. What did Molda support? From X-Files. Oh, man. What did the city council support for, I can't spell, for inner city and outer city mileage rates rideshare? I gotta figure out this answer. All right, I think this is what I should have asked to start with. Where's my Gemini? Okay. Rideshare. Okay, I'm just gonna have to look at this later. I'm gonna assume you're right for now, but I'm pretty sure that there was a change for both city limits and outside of city limits. William says state is looking into their rates. Okay. Rankin Kelly says the ordinance is going to ruin Minneapolis anyway. It's already an extremely low volume market. General says minimum pay rate feels like a slow walk into W2 employees. I kind of share that feeling of based off a trajectory that eventually Uber and Lyft just won't be sustainable. For some people, it already isn't. And I'm very big on us practicing having an escape plan for when that happens. Like for me, I'm just doing as Uber and Lyft allows me to work as many hours as I want with the flexibility that I want to allow me to be a YouTuber and to pay off my debt. I'm trying to pay off $100,000 of debt between me and my wife, and it allows me just to work as much as I want. And my plan is to get debt free, save up a 6-month emergency fund, and start chasing after the dreams that I had when I was little. I want to get my pilot license. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to do this. I want to live in Japan. It'll be easier to do that when I have no debt. My monthly expenses currently, like after with no debt payment, it's like 1,500 for food. For the mortgage is $900. So it's like I would have a lot more flexibility in life if I paid on my debt, my car is paid off. And so I want all of you to have some kind of exit plan because eventually, even if pay doesn't decrease to nothing, Uber and Lyft have said they want to replace us with self-driving cars. Now you can disagree with whether or not they'll be successful with that, but you can't disagree with the fact that they said it. I can pull up PR statements from these companies where they have said that is their goal. So that's what I want from you guys. William says 19 million is not a very low. Frankie, are you talking about the data, the amount of rides they're pulling data from? Frankie says compared to other major cities. William says if not Big Four, then you are not in a major city. I kind of agree with this. agree with this. What would you call Big Four? What is that? New York City, Los Angeles, someplace in Texas, maybe. But I guess I can just do a search, right? Instead of just assuming. Um, biggest cities by population in America. Wikipedia. Number one is New York City. Oh my God. Look how slow my mouse is moving. Anyways, number one is New York City. Number two is Los Angeles. Number three is Chicago. Very dangerous city. Number four is Houston. Five is Phoenix. Six is Philadelphia. Seven is San Antonio. Eight is San Diego. Nine is Dallas. 10 is Austin. Let's see where Charleston is. 172 in terms of population. That's Charleston. That's my city. Goes Charleston. William says if a corporation is not profitable for years, then they shouldn't exist, period. Why workers have to subsidize these companies? Let the market decide and don't let these corporations use money and power to regulate their way to success. Smells like a FAA doing the inspections, 787 MAX planes when it's really Boeing inspecting their own planes. To that, I would say that's not the whole story, man. Like these companies can intentionally not be profitable. Like Amazon wasn't profitable for 8 years, not because they weren't making money, because they were reinvesting that money. They were taking investors' money and spending it and running up a deficit. And Uber was doing that until investors started warning them, hey, we're not going to keep investing if the market, the stock market, the interest rate market keeps declining. And the quarter after they received that information, they were profitable because they started making decisions to be profitable. So it's not the full story. So I agree with your overall incentive that if a company who's actually trying to be profitable can't become profitable, they shouldn't take it out on, us. I agree with that. But it, Uber is a little different. Lyft is actually struggling, right? They fired people. They're actually making cuts. They're trying to become profitable and struggling. But Uber, as far as today goes, has always had the ability to be profitable. They just have kind of chosen to reinvest their money into acquisitions and things like that. So it's not the full story. But let's move forward to where I'm going to respond to a comment about buying a Tesla, or some guy, a viewer, justifying buying a Tesla. We're kind of explore together if it's a good idea or a bad idea. So give me a second while I figure out where these tabs are. Go to studio. It's unfortunate.
If you work in IT, you need a Terra. With remote monitoring and management, remote access, help.
Hello. Okay, here we go. So this is a video where I every now and then I'll just take all of the segments of me responding to your guys' comments, and I'll just throw them up in a video, especially if they're good questions, good responses. I'll just throw them up in a video and I'll just let it run. So this comment comes from this video. Let's see, where is it? This is from Tesla Ride Chronicles right here. Let's see if he has an active YouTube channel. 24 subscribers. He's not posting anything, but it looks like he wants to. So if you're out there, bro, I support content creators. If you're thinking about, like, if there's a bunch of reasons why you haven't filmed your first video and upload it, just do it. Like, the hardest part is starting. Once you start, everything else will flow. Don't wait till you have the best of the best or whatever. Just get started. Like, go watch my old videos. They're garbage, but no one's gonna see them. So just get started. I support content creators. So you want to make rideshare videos with your Model Y, do it. There's a lot of Tesla lovers out there. A lot of people want to have inside perspective on Tesla. So go ahead and do it. All right, so I'm gonna read through his entire response, and then I'm gonna break it down and respond. Let me zoom in for you guys. That's a little too much. Okay. He says, let's be real. And this is from the perspective of a brand new 2023 Model Y owner. He says, one, my Model Y is a way better investment than a Prius because little to no maintenance for over 40,000 miles, literally no issues. Number two, there's no congestion fees in California, and oh, I can't wait at a supercharger, or it takes too long when it only takes 15 to 25 minutes to go from 10% to 90%. Number three, I only do 25 rides a week and make $1,500 plus in the LA market. He obviously knows how to make money in his market. Number four, I charge at home and one time once after 300 miles of work. I'm assuming he means he's only used a supercharger once after he drove 300 miles for work. And he says, all in all, Tesla is a way better than a Prius because not only can I do X, right? I can do Uber Black and Lyft Black, even though I won't get a lot of them. But the fact I can get them over a trash Prius is worth it. Okay. I'm going to go through this. I'm going to give you guys a peek into my brain, like how my brain operates when I see something like this. Okay. So he's in a 2023 Model Y. There's something called the Wayback Machine where it takes screenshots of the internet and stores it. You know, I'll just show you an example. Wayback Machine. So this is it. Let's do Lyft.com. Lyft.com. You put in the website, and then you can pick where in history you want to go back. We can go back to 2018 to see what Lyft looked like in 2018, right? So when people try to delete things from the internet, this is where you go to try and find it. Now it is moving a little slow today, but I just wanted to show you that this is what I use to go back. This is old school Lyft, right? Old school Lyft. It's cool. It's cool little thing. Let me close some of these tabs. Not that tab. God damn it. The tab I needed. Let me navigate back to that comment. I don't like that it's so far below everyone's comments. I'm going to like it so it can rise to the top. Now, let me close all these other tabs. I have too many tabs. I do need these tabs though. Let me pull this tab out. Okay, this works. All right, cool. All right, so we'll go back over here. So this is the Wayback Machine for Tesla. He said he bought his in August 2023. So I want it to be as fair as possible when I go through this. So I'm gonna have to make some assumptions. And if you're watching this and you want to clear up some assumptions when I post this video, go ahead. I'll try to readjust my math based off of additional information that you give to me. So he said he bought his car in August of 2023. Let's assume he put a down payment of $2,000. Come on. So assume a down payment of $2,000. We're going to assume a term loan of 72 months. That seems to be what's average right now. This is directly from Tesla website. We're going to assume a very good credit rating of 680 to 720 credit score, which Tesla allows people to finance at 8.39%, right? And the financed amount would be $49,880, but we're going to have to subtract the 7,500 tax credit, assuming he got it. So I'm going to make a lot of assumptions, but my assumptions will lean towards his favor. So when I'm making a point, I like to lean towards the opposite of my point because I think it strengthens my point. So let's go and we need my Gemini. We're going to have Gemini walk us through this. So let me line up the facts. I'm making a mess. All right. Give me a second while I line up the facts. Actually, let's switch. I'm going to put this over here. And then I'm going to put this over here so I can see it. All right. Consider that I bought a brand new Model Y Tesla for $49,880 and saved $7,500 thanks to the tax credit. I took out a 72-month loan with an APR of 8.39%. How much will I pay in total over the life of the loan? Let's first establish how much this would cost. Let me make sure this math is looking accurate. So here's a breakdown. Loan amount, 48,000, price minus the tax credit. So the loan amount would actually come out to $41,380. The monthly interest rate of 8.39% divided by 12 would be 0.69. So the number of payments is 72 months, monthly payment using loan amount. So his total would be, over the life of the loan, you'd pay approximately $48,948.24 in total for your Model Y. So we have established how much he would pay in total for this car. This is it. This is assuming he took out a loan under those stipulations. So again, let's assume a $15,000 Prius. You know me, I like my used Priuses. And in the video that he was responding to, I was talking about the Prius. And to those of you who think it's unfair for me to compare a brand new Tesla to a used Prius, it's not, because my goal is to convince people to, one, stop buying brand new cars, period. Don't buy a brand new Prius. And then two, stop buying a brand new Tesla, because they're really, really expensive. And we're going to math through it right now. So his argument was that, compared to a Prius, the Tesla would have significantly less maintenance. So I want to address that. I think it's important to address that first. So compared to most cars, I do think a Tesla might have better maintenance costs, but I went ahead and I have too many tabs. Give me a second, guys. Okay. So this is the average maintenance cost for a Tesla, right? Before I even read you the numbers, I want you to understand where these numbers come from. So here's the methodology, right? Methodology is how someone decides something. They say that we consider anything that exceeds $500, including parts and labor, to be major repair. We aggregate and analyze millions of automotive data points from a variety of the industry's leading data providers. The insights and information on this page represent the overall averages of the combined cost of vehicle ownership. This information should be used as a general guide, as your individual results may vary significantly from what is shown. Our mission is to provide car buyers with resources they need to make informed purchase decisions. To learn more, see our FAQ. So this is caredge.com. And I made sure I got a source that covered the Tesla and the Prius. I didn't want to get one source for the Tesla and then on a different website, because their methodologies might be different. So this is an apples to apples comparison as far as CarEdge goes. So let's go to the top. It says the Tesla models average around $5,867 for maintenance and repair costs during their first 10 years of service. This beats the industry average for luxury brands by $6,177. There's also a 9.82% chance that a Tesla will require a major repair during that time. This is 25.27% better when compared to other auto manufacturers in the segment that we have studied. So sure, it does seem like Teslas, they have an advantage over other classes of car in their class. So it is great. Overall, it's better than average. Thumbs up. Let's see what the Prius does. So here's a Prius. A Toyota Prius will cost about $4,008 for maintenance and repairs during its first 10 years of service. This beats the industry average for popular hatchback models by $2,756. There's also a 11.22% chance that a Prius will require a major repair during that time. That's like 2% more than the Prius, than the Tesla. That's like 2% more than the Tesla. This is 10.28% better than similar vehicles in this segment. The chart below illustrates how these costs and repair probabilities will increase over time. And they have, cool costs. Of course, you buy a used Prius, this number might be higher, but I don't think it's going to be significantly higher. We know that Toyotas are very, very reliable cars and they last for a very, very long time. I recently shared a video on my channel that shows a Prius with 550,000 miles that's still going very, very strong. So a lot of people like to say, oh, the maintenance on a Tesla is cheap, but that's not really true, right? Yes, they don't have to get oil changes, and oil change is $40 every 5,000 miles on a Prius. But when something goes wrong with the Tesla, it's expensive. If you need to replace your battery out of warranty, it's like 10 grand. That's literally the cost of a new Prius. You need to replace your tires more often because of how heavy those batteries are. So there are maintenance costs associated. You may not be paying them as frequently as other cars will, but that doesn't mean that the total is less, right? This is $4,000. We'll just call it $4,000. This is $4,000 for Prius for maintenance. This is $5,867, right? But let's ignore this. Let's ignore the fact that according to Car Edge, it's actually cheaper to do maintenance on a Prius than a Tesla. Let's ignore that for a second. Let's talk about the savings that you get from charging at home, right? I've established that charging at a supercharger is more expensive than putting gas inside of a Prius. However, the viewer says that he charges at home. He's only ever charged once at a supercharger. So we'll forget about that once. Well, he charges at home. So let's figure out if that's better or if that justifies the price difference between getting a brand new Tesla or just getting a used Prius. Once I find the tab, I think I brought the tab out. Here it is. Okay, so we need to figure out what we need to ask, right? What is the prompt here? Compare charging a Tesla Model Y at home using the average price of electricity for Cali compared to, what do you want? You want per mile? Yeah, compared to how much it costs per mile for gas in a Prius. Let's see if that gives us what we're looking for. It says here is a comparison for charging a Tesla Model Y at home in California versus fueling a Toyota Prius with gas. So he gives us some stuff. We'll skip down here to the analysis. The Tesla Model Y appears to be slightly cheaper to operate on a per mile basis under these assumptions. It says there are a few things to consider. It says electricity prices fluctuate, but so does gas. Charging habits are important. Come on, did they not just give me the number? Oh, is it here? Okay. All right. I made a mistake. So the Tesla Model Y, the cost per mile is 74 cents per mile if you charge at home. For a Toyota Prius, the cost is, it's not even 74 cents. It's 7 cents and a fourth is what it really is. So 7 cents per mile. And then for the Prius, it's 8 cents per mile. Okay. So sure, charging your Tesla at home is cheaper than putting gas inside of a Prius. Now, let's look at how many miles you would have to drive in order to justify the price difference between a brand new Tesla and, let's say, a $15,000 Prius. How do I ask this question? How many miles would a Tesla that costs, how much did we say it costs? Did we do this here? Yes, we did do this here. Okay. So the total price is this, right? $48,940.24. How many miles would a Tesla that costs have to drive when considering the fuel savings compared to buying a $15,000 Prius. I also want to point out before I press enter, you can buy like 3.5 Priuses in the time it takes you to buy one Tesla. I just want to point that out. That's if you need to like have a scale for absurdity, that's how many you can buy several you could buy $5,000-$10,000 Priuses in the time it takes you to pay off one Tesla. So it says, here's how to calculate the mileage needed for a Tesla to offset the price difference compared to a Prius, considering fuel savings. Shows you the calculations, right? The 7 per mile. This looks off. This number should be 7. It should be 7 cents. Oh, no, it did the math. So it took the Prius cost and subtracted the Tesla cost, and then that's the difference. So the difference is less than a penny per mile. That's how negligible it truly is. Like, let me zoom in for you so you can see it, right? Less than a penny per mile. But let's continue. Let's continue. So to break even, you would have to drive this many miles. In order to justify buying a brand new Tesla instead of getting a used Prius, you would have to drive 4,850,034 miles to justify the cost difference of getting a brand new car instead of a used Prius. Like, there's no math that I have seen so far that can sway me into thinking that buying any brand new car is financially the better choice than getting a used car. Even if I have to buy a used car in a Prius and spend $5,000 fixing it, it still works out better. Like, the goal of rideshare is to make as much money as possible while spending the least, right? You want your net to be as high as possible. Sure, you qualify for better rides, but do those better rides justify 4 million miles? Almost 5 million miles? You have to buy several Tesla. Like, let's assume your Tesla even lasts that long. You probably have to replace your battery several times at like about $8,000 to $10,000 for each use. There's no math that can justify. Shoot, forget the Prius. Just getting a used car instead of a brand new Tesla, right? Now, if the used car you're getting is like a pickup truck, sure, you're not going to take this many miles to justify the purchase. You'll probably be okay in that scenario, but we're not talking about pickup trucks here. We're talking about cars that are fuel efficient. The Prius is the king of fuel efficiency, sure. There are other fuel efficient cars. My Jetta would probably still work out to be a better used buy. I paid $13,000 for my Jetta and it's paid off. Like, I can buy like 4 to 5 Jettas and the time it takes you to pay off your one Tesla, bro. Like, I want a Tesla someday. I'm not against Tesla. Most rideshare drivers aren't wealthy. I'm not wealthy. Most aren't. Some are, right? There is a path to becoming wealthy. And the thing that prevents us the most from becoming wealthy is the car we get. Right? You said you bought it in August. You said you drove 40,000 miles since then. The average rideshare driver makes 86 cents per mile. I'm gonna assume you earn $1 per mile. And then I'm also going to assume that every single mile you've driven in your Tesla has been for Uber and Lyft, which we know is not true, but I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt. That means you made at most $40,000 before expenses, before the amount of electricity it takes to fill your car, right? 40,000 miles. I will say, buying a car in August and it being March, you driving 40,000 miles, I think you're driving a lot. Or I think you're kind of driving a lot. You probably do a little more, but I think you're working. I think you're making that money. But one thing we also got to talk about is that based off of the numbers you put in here, your car payment at the low end is $800 a month. Your insurance, when I looked at insurance in one of my videos, when I was trying to sign up for a Tesla, they were quoting me $350. I'm gonna quote you at $300. I'm gonna assume you're a great driver. So you're at $300. $300 plus $800 is $1,100 just for your car payment and insurance per month. So if you made $40,000 and it's been, let's see, 40,000 miles we're calling that dollars, divided by 6 months. Slow. I should have just used my calculator. Okay. I'm using my calculator. So $40,000, which is what we're assuming you earned over the course of 40,000 miles, divided by 6 months, because you bought it in August, you're averaging $6,666 per month. Right off the bat, we're gonna have to subtract 1,100, and I can't do math. And you're left with 5,566, and that's not including any other costs that you might have, and you're gonna have other costs. So, no, your reasoning for justifying your investment into your Tesla, there are better investments that could have been made, mathematically speaking. And if you have math that can disprove what I'm saying, show it to me. I want to be wrong, because being wrong means I can go and learn. But right now, just buying a brand new car just isn't the move for rideshare. It just isn't. Like, just let someone else eat that depreciation. Like, all right, so let's figure out 6 months. In 6 months, you would have paid, we're assuming $800 for your car payment. So let's do, we're gonna say we're assuming $800 for your car payment over the course of 6 months. So you've paid $4,800 so far, and we're assuming your car loan is, I think I have it copy and pasted here. Yeah, so we're assuming that's your car loan down there. So remember that number, 4,800. So 948 minus 4,800. So 44,000. That's how much you have left on your car loan. Let's go to Kelly Blue Books and let's see how much your car is even worth right now. My car's value. Zoom in a little here. Make, model. So you said you got a 2023. Come on, stop. Tesla Model Y, 40,000. 1, 2, 3. Your zip code is California. It's California zip code. Should have just went like 912010. Is that it? Is that the old show? So he said he has the long range. He didn't say he has sport. So let's just assume long range, sport utility, standard utility. He does have long range. He did say that. So we're going to do that. We don't know. I'm just going to put standard, right? I assume he did standard, but he could have picked other things that jacked his price up. Let's assume silver. That's what I normally see out there in the wild. Selling my car. I don't get cash off of a specific vehicle. What's the easiest one here? Come on. No, I don't have anything to tell you. An official offer to buy your car. Can I skip this? Right, we're gonna go back. I think I clicked something. Get cash. Okay, this is what I don't need clicked. We're gonna assume you have an excellent car because you just bought it. It better be excellent. I don't want it emailed. If this page is not redirecting, redirect me now. Thanks. Okay. Ooh, ouch. Ouch. Your trading value is estimated at $30,000. Let's do private. If private, you get more money if you privately sell it. I'm gonna assume you're a savvy person and that you're gonna sell it privately, right? $35,000 if you sell it privately. You just bought this car 6 months ago, and according to my calculations of assumptions, right? So if you have information that can clear up some of these assumptions, please let me know. But according to my calculations, you're about $9,000 underwater on your car. So that means even if you wanted to sell it, you would have to come up with about 10 grand to get out in the clear. Now, if you're interested in fixing this mistake, what you could do is, right, you have a loan left for, let's call it $45,000. I guess I need my calculator back, right? So let's say $45,000. My recommendation would be that you go out and see if you can get a loan for $60,000, right? Get a loan for $60,000. Out of that $60,000, 60,000, out of that $60,000, you pay off your car loan, right? And you sell your Tesla, right? So that's gonna leave you with about $15,000. And with that 15,000, I made a mistake. Hold on. So it's $60,000, and we're subtracting that 45, right? Now you have no car, but you have no car and $15,000. You know what you do with that $15,000? You go and buy a Prius, and you've lowered your debt from $45,000 to $15,000. See how that worked? And now you only have to pay $15,000 off. You can do that in like 3-4 months based off, right? You're averaging like $6,666, right? Let's divide that by $6,663. Let's see how many months it would take you to pay that off. You pay it off in 2.2 months. I'm gonna check in on the comments. And to be fair, before I even read the comments, I would still much prefer you buy a used Tesla. If you really, really want to be Tesla fan, that's fine. I'm not necessarily against Teslas. Brand new Teslas are more expensive than some other brand new cars you could get, but I don't recommend brand new cars in general. So I want to make that clear distinction. If you want to get a used Tesla, do that, but stop trying to justify getting a brand new car. Period. Whether it's a Tesla or something else, you don't need to get a brand new car. You don't. Do the due diligence and go get a used car. If you want a used Tesla, go ahead and do that. You could have gotten a used Tesla for like half the price of what you're paying for your Tesla. So there's no math that has been shown to me so far to justify buying a new car or a new Tesla. I want to make that distinction. General says, I mean, if you can afford the Tesla and have home to charge it in, plus being in one of your big 4 cities, then by all means do your thing. I agree, but I also think that your definition of affording a Tesla is probably different from my definition of affording a Tesla. Like I just said earlier, we need to create exit strategies. You just bought a $45,000 car when, 3 months ago, a bunch of rideshare drivers were complaining, especially in LA. They were complaining that there was no money. People were complaining. I got a lot of heat for talking about some guy who couldn't afford his mortgage, right? We're noticing a downtrend. Even if you're a good rideshare driver, there's a downtrend year over year since the pandemic. And I didn't drive before the pandemic, so I don't know what was happening before then. But we can all overall agree that the pay has decreased since the pandemic. Why would you go and pay that much money for a new car? It's risk. There's risk associated with this. So for me, if you want to buy a Tesla, to me, being able to afford it, here's the list. 1, you don't buy a brand new car unless your net worth is over $1 million, including your home and in your retirement accounts and bank accounts. That number seems like a high number, and it is, because you don't want the purchase of a new car to stop you from building wealth. Wealth is compounding. The more you have is the more it'll build. So you don't want to pick car over wealth, right? You want to have your wealth and then go get that car you always want. So that's number 1. No brand new car unless you have $1 million net worth. And that comes from Dave Ramsey. I'm a Dave Ramsey follower, and I think it's a good principle. Number 2, don't buy a car that's more than 50% of your income. That's number 2. So take the new car off as a thing you should do, and then if you earn $50,000 a year, like your true income, you don't have to look at your after mileage deduction, because that's misleading. Your true income after expenses and taxes, the money you keep, if you earn $100,000, you can go and justify buying a $50,000 car, as long as it's not a brand new car. I still wouldn't pay that much money for it at $100,000. I would aim for less than 25, even if I had $100,000, just because I understand the relationship. Like I'll save money and just buy a 3-year used car. It's not a significant difference between a brand new car. You can get a 3-year used car with like 15,000 miles on it. I bought a 2-year used car in 2019. I bought my 2017 Jetta, and it cost $16,000 and had 500 miles on it. There's no one in this world that can mathematically explain to me that buying a new Tesla would have been a better decision. It just doesn't work out. My car's paid off, and aside from the money part of it, there's the risk part of it. If something happens to your car and you have a car payment on it, you still have a car payment on it. And your battery goes bad, it goes to the shop, it takes a long time for you to get a new battery. You still have a car payment on it. Your car gets flooded, goes up in flames, maybe you'll get insurance for it. But until that gets cleared up, guess what? You have a car payment on it. So there's risk also involved with being a rideshare driver, and not all of that risk is just about the car. You can break your legs. You can't drive for a while. You still have a car payment. So like these things are like, they have to be considered. Even if you get a car payment on a used Tesla, the risk involved is significantly lower than a car payment on a new anything. So that needs to be considered. Dang, I forgot what my original point was. I was talking about what you guys need to what you should consider when buying a car. So then my third rule is, it's actually kind of really the first rule. I'm not buying another car using debt. I'm done with debt. I'm gonna be debt free this year. I paid off my car in December. My wife's car is paid off. If something happens to my car, I'll drive her car. I'm starting to save up for another car because my car is getting high in mileage. I'm taking debt off the table. When you take debt off the table, you make different decisions. You think about things differently. People who use debt probably don't think about saving up for the next car. They think that, oh, when my car breaks down, even though I have $10,000 that I still owe on it, I'm going to roll over that negative equity into my new car to make it more negative. That's the average mindset. And I don't want you guys doing that. I don't want you guys upside down on your cars, right? We just came out of a period where used cars were going for more than they should have been because of the whole pandemic. But it's evening out now. I could have sold my car for more than I bought it for, but that's slowly no longer becoming the case. Like used cars depreciate, they depreciate fast, and 60% of a car's depreciation happens within the first 3 years of ownership, which is why I say just buy a 3-year-old car if you really have like a new car fever. Okay, that was good. That's a nice little rant. I'm running out of breath, energy. Okay. William says, would you get a used Model Y? I would get a used Tesla, yeah. I would get whatever the 7-seater is. I don't really know. Is that the Model Y? What if the 7-seater also qualifies for XL and black and all of that? That's the one I would aim for. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about it. I plan on making a more full video about this, but we can talk a little bit about it. You guys support me on the live streams. I can let you into my head a little bit. I'm going to come out with a video that covers the worst types of cars to get for rideshare and the best types of cars for rideshare, right? Number one on the list of worst cars is probably going to be new vehicles, like all new vehicles. Number two is probably going to be like pickup trucks. Believe it or not, I see people driving around pickup trucks. There's just no obvious reasons, gas mileage. You pick up people who don't have great mobility and your truck is too high, it's going to be a pain in the butt. Just no. Like if you have a pickup truck, there are so many other gigs you can do that will make you significantly more money to justify having the truck. So I'm just no. Pickup trucks is straight up no. Number three would be no more SUVs. No more SUVs unless they're 7-seaters. If you have a 5-seater, you might as well get the cheapest 5-seater for the job. I know there's comfort out there. There might be some black cars that are like 5-seaters. Those might get a pass, right? But when it comes to like SUVs, no, just the price between an SUV and an equivalent 7-seater is not significantly different enough. Is not significantly different enough to where you should get the 5-seater, the SUV 5-seater instead. They're not that great on gas. The best 5-seater is the best SUV 5-seater is probably the hybrid one by Toyota. I gotta Google it now because I don't know what it's called. All right, Toyota SUV. So using Toyota as an example, instead of getting the RAV4 hybrid, I would go, and of course these are new prices. We're not dealing with new. I would just get a 7-seater, the Highlander, whatever 7-seater. I just think a 7-seater is better than a 5-seater SUV. Like if you're just gonna get a 5-seater, get a black car or just get a Prius. Like the price difference to me doesn't make sense. So I think the Model Y, I don't know too much about the different types of Teslas, but I would prefer a seven seater Tesla over a 5-seater Tesla SUV, if that makes sense, right? If I'm gonna go 5-seater, I might as well just get the Y, or not the Y, the X, or whatever the car model is, if that makes sense. If you disagree with me, let me know. I haven't looked in depth at these things to really compare the numbers. So if you have information that might change my mind, I'm receptive to it right now. Like I don't sit here and think that what I believe is what everyone should believe. But when people believe something, they should be able to defend it. So I'm gonna defend my beliefs until you know someone gives me information to point me otherwise. William says, if you have to remember the maintenance, both vehicles are multiple by the use of rideshare. Remember, Prius still have exhaust systems, Cadillac converters, and electronics that Toyota warranty won't cover. Sure, you can keep that in mind, but that's also true of Teslas and charging, right? The more you charge the battery, the more it degrades, and replacing the batteries are expensive. The tires on Tesla are expensive to begin with, and they have to replace more often than a Prius just because of how heavy they are. It's for both, right? And I already showed the average maintenance costs, right? It's cheaper. So if we're talking exponential, it won't be like, the more you multiply it, it won't become lower than the higher thing. When it says engine transmission, that's fair. Engine transmission is fair. Okay, that's fair. If your engine goes bad, then that's a problem. If your transmission goes bad, that's a problem. There are things that you can do to maintain it. But if you're buying a used car, that is the risk. So I will concede that point. I concede that point. Would I get a used Model Y? Oh, I kind of skipped those questions, huh? So I answered that. The Driven Dad says, not that I want to buy new, but I'm sure California has their EV credit. Cole has 5K in addition to the 5,000. I tried looking it up and I couldn't find the specific one for California, but I did apply the 7,500 to my math that I was doing earlier. So I did include that in there. Marvin says, Tristan, I love what you do, but I think you're accounting for the differences in types of rides premium he can get with the Tesla. By his own admission, he said he does not get enough. I don't know what at what point you joined this conversation, but by his own admission, he says he doesn't get a lot of those type of rides. And I don't think you're gonna earn over, what was it, $30,000 in a year on a differential of ride types. One, we saw that he's driven 40,000 miles, which tells us how many miles he's driven in 6 months, and not all those miles are for rideshare. So one of the points I've been making over and over is that if you don't charge at a rideshare, if you don't charge at a supercharger, you're probably not driving enough to justify buying a new Tesla. If it's a used, that can be discussed, but you have to drive a lot to make enough money to justify the expense, right? And if you're only driving at home, then to me, you're not driving enough. I routinely will drive over 300 miles. I did that on Sunday and I made almost $800. Right? I don't know at what time you joined the stream, but here's my Sunday: $797.74. If I had a Tesla, I have to, for me, right? He's in California. They have better charging infrastructure. For me, I'd have to drive 20 minutes to the supercharger before I even start charging. And then 20 minutes at the supercharger, that's 40 minutes. And then 20 minutes back downtown, that's an hour. On Thursday, right, I had to do a ride challenge. And the ride challenge ended at 5 a.m. I barely succeeded. If I had to charge my car at any point that night, here it is. You can see the day starts at 5 a.m., but you can see that I got the ride challenge at 5:15 a.m. That's because I barely got a ride before 5 a.m. If at any point that night I had to go and charge for an hour, I lose out on this $130. So I don't think that, yes, you make more money with certain ride types, but you still have to do the math to justify, will those ride types bridge the gap? And by his own admission, he said he does not get as many of those ride types. His own admission. Right? I'm not making stuff up here. Dasher and etc. I like that name. He says, I work Uber Eats with a guy with a Tesla, and in 2 years, I've definitely seen more rentals than his actual Tesla. Are you saying that you've seen more rentals because the Tesla's in the shop or something? Like, what does that mean? And definitely do not agree with a Tesla for food delivery. Some markets have really great food delivery markets, but generally speaking, delivering people pays more than delivering food. In fact, there's the Prius C, which is a small variant of the Prius. In fact, now forget all of that. I would get, honestly, I would get a rebuilt titled car if I was only going to do food delivery. I would look for a title that's rebuilt for cosmetics, right? They have, you can see why a car was rebuilt. And that's what I will get if I was going to do food delivery, honestly. But especially not catching me in a new Tesla for food delivery, not in my market. The Driven Dad says, but let's say you can now be your own company and do private trips. I can justify a black car that can make me 3K in 40 hours versus 90 hours. If you're, so to that, I would say do it. Right. He said he didn't say he was doing it. In California, he would still have to get the proper licenses. His insurance would also increase. I can do private rides in my car now. I may not. So I will say having access to upper tier clients would probably net you a better result with your private clientele. So that is a possibility. But if you want to justify the cost of doing that, you actually have to do it, right? So if you're saying that's why you got it, and you include that into the reasons why you got it, and you show me proof that you're justifying the cost of the commercial insurance of whatever you have to do with your state to get verified as a private client taker or whatever, then sure, I'll have that conversation. But in the same breath, you can still do that with a used Tesla. Like it doesn't have to be a brand new Tesla to do that, right? The Teslas don't even really put years on their cars. Like your clients are not going to differentiate between a brand new black Tesla, whatever it is, versus a 3-year-old black Tesla. So I would still say used is better in that case. You're going to be making the same amount of money with a cheaper car. And if you have information that says otherwise, let me know. William says, wow, he's driving a lot. I put 50K a year for the last 2 years. He has to. He has no choice. He has to make $1,100 per month just to break even on the low end. Compared to me, my insurance is $120 and my car is paid off. I have to make $120 to break even. That's almost 10 times less. That's a big difference, guys. Like most of us, if we had a choice, we wouldn't be a rideshare driver. There's something else that we want to do that probably takes time to build or takes time to get educated on. And for me, rideshare is helping me solve for freedom. I'm trying to lower my expenses so I don't have to make as much money so that I can spend more time doing that other thing that I want to do, whether it's YouTube, eventually getting my pilot's license, living in a different country, when I have a kid, having time to spend with my family. If I have to buy something that's going to force me to go out and work more just to justify the cost of that thing, I don't really want it. And I know not everyone's like me. That's fine. But I'm just explaining to you where my perspective is born from. Now, if you want to be a full-time rideshare driver and that's what you like when you came out your mother's womb, that's what you wanted to do. You knew you wanted to be in a car and drive people around. Go ahead and do that. But I'm trying to solve for freedom. If you want to buy a more expensive car that forces you to have to work more often, that's not where my priorities are at. William says, I agree, Marvin. He's probably doing basic rides until the nights, weekend bar, and club scenes. William says, I don't know why it jumps like that. Oh my God. You guys actually, okay, here we go. William also says, plus whatever Uber and Lyft is subsidizing with incentives, the Driven Dad. Yep, agree with the numbers. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't talk about that. Uber does have incentives. Lyft does have incentives like per ride and per whatever. So yeah, I didn't factor that into my numbers. Even if they're $5,000, which I don't think is that high, I still think 5 million miles to justify without the $5,000 is probably not going to be significantly less than the 5 million miles. That's going to be the title of the video when I put it out. You need to drive 5 million miles to justify buying a brand new Tesla. That's going to be the title. You're going to see it sometime this week. Watch. It's going to be a fantastic title. William says, yep, agree with the numbers. William says he could have paid a lot of the principal. That is true. That would affect so between the principal and interest rate, it's only about 10 grand. So if he were to pay his payments on time over the life of the loan, assuming a 72-month loan, it'd be about 10 grand. So we still look at the numbers. Even if you put a higher down payment down, unless you paid for it in full, he'd only be saving 10 grand. I don't think that's big enough to really move the needle in the conversation. And it might be. I'm being lazy. I'm not going to go back and check. William says, I'm not paying 60K for a Prius. No, don't pay 60K for a Prius. Don't pay 40K for a Prius. Don't pay 50K for a Prius. Don't pay 30K for a Prius. I wouldn't pay 20K for a Prius. I barely want to pay 15. I'd look for something like 10 to 12. So yeah, I know I'm using Tesla as the headliner, but don't buy a new car, period. Don't buy a new Prius. Even if I was rich, I still wouldn't buy a Prius for 60K, but I might buy a Tesla for 60K if I was rich, right? If I had those things that I talked about earlier. So I understand that. Who says I always buy used, got sucked in during the pandemic. You got sucked into buying used, or did you have a new car and then something happened and then that, like give me some more words. Alexandra says, hola, a question, dollar per hour or dollar per mile? Sometimes I'd be wondering. I assume you're asking me what's more important. And my response to that is yes. Both are important. Company called Parker's Kitchen. Numbers are important because they tell you the health of your business. They tell you what you can improve on. You can make a great amount of money per hour and have a bad amount of money per mile. So that's the signal to you that you need to figure out how to keep your per hour earnings up while also trying to figure out how to make more money per mile. So it's not one or the other. A lot of YouTubers on here will try to trick you into thinking it's one or the other. It's all of it. Active time is important. Online time is important. Door-to-door time is important, right? If you have a great active time, $40 per hour on active time, fantastic. But you have a very, very, very poor door-to-door time, and if you figure out how to make your active time closer to your door-to-door time, you're going to make significantly more money than if you had just focused on active time, right? Think of it like a sliding scale. If you're focused only on how much you make per mile, right? People who sit at the airport make great money per mile, but they don't make great money per hour. So it's a constant fluctuation, and you have to find a thing that's going to give you the best overall results. So that's what I have to say about that. Stop letting these other YouTubers trick you into thinking that you're less of a contractor just because you're focused on certain numbers. You should be focused on all of the numbers and target where you have the most opportunity to increase your income first. And as you're improving those things, then you move to the next thing. It's all important. Truck driver says, the pay is def going down. I've been looking for a W2 job and going back to rideshare as a weekend warrior. Like you say all the time, rideshare is a great plug until you find something else. I agree with that. I'm going based off of the screenshots you share on Twitter. I know you did Amazon, but I see you have the challenges as well. I thought those challenges were going well. Is demand decreasing in your market? Is that what's happening? Alexandra says $10 for 20 miles and the next ride, $20 for 5 miles, or decline any ride after under $20. I do not set hard rules, right? I don't say I'm going to decline every single ride under X amount of dollars. Every single ride has a time and a place depending on your strategy. That's important. You need to have multiple strategies for multiple use cases. There are times of the day 20 miles is far. 20 miles is far for $10. For me, I would use the stay within the area filter. So I don't even see things like that, right? But that's a lie. Sometimes I live about 20 minutes from home. I live 20 minutes from downtown. So I will take a poorly paying ride if it's taking me from where I live to downtown. I don't care how much. If it pays more than $0 per hour or per mile, I'm taking it because I'm heading that way anyways. So that's just like an example of how what strategy you're using dictates what kind of ride you should take. If I'm doing ride challenges where I want a bunch of quick rides in a short amount of time, I'm taking a bunch of $3 rides because I know it's going to equate to more than $3. So don't get into this mindset of anything under this, I'm not going to do, because there is a strategy in which that thing can be incorporated in. Truck driver says, Tristan, I agree with your assessment and always say buy used over new. However, when I shopped for used vehicles a few months ago, asset prices were up and interest rates were 4% higher than new. So then to that, I would say this is why cash is king, especially in the high interest rate market. When you have cash, that's king. And I would buy, I wouldn't even go to a dealership, which has, buying private has its own levels of concern. You have to do more due diligence, more research. Make sure what you get is a good product. So there are things to worry about. But I'm not pro dealership right now. Their prices are crazy. They're trying to sell that 550,000 mile Prius for like 15 grand. Like hell no, hell no. You get a 100K Prius for like 10 grand of the same year. So no, they're tripping. They were definitely tripping with their insurance dealership prices. Model X. I'm assuming Model X is the 7-seater. Driven Dad says main thing is cash. Yes, 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 yes. Alexander says for Excel, I will always recommend the Highlander hybrid, like I did. I love it. 7 ACs, 30 plus miles per gallon reliability. So on average, your regular 5-seater car will have about 30 miles per gallon. That's not a hybrid. So for something that seats 7 to 8, that's really good miles per gallon. Like if I were going to target a 7-seater, the Highlander would be at the top of my list, but I would have to do more research into like black and whatever. But in my market, there's no black. There's no Lux black. There's no Lyft black. I haven't looked about Uber black, but I doubt it's here as well. So for me in my market, the black cars, I shouldn't even really consider them. But the Highlander for a 7-seater would be really good. The only problem is the hybrid models, they're still relatively new. So I'm not gonna be able to get one that's used enough that's gonna like fit within my budget. But I'm gonna let you guys know, right? If I become successful, debt free, and full-time YouTuber, I'll still make rideshare content, but I'm gonna make unsmart personal financial decisions so I can make videos, right? If I want to test to see if the Tesla is a great car for rideshare, I'd go buy one cash. I drive it for 3 months so I can have a more accurate assessment. Because right now I'm just talking on paper, right? I'm talking rhetoric. I'll be honest about it. But I'm also old enough and I've gone through enough in life to know that when you experience something, it can change how you feel about something. So I do understand that I need to go and experience it. If I tried renting one, but there's no rental for Uber in my market. So yeah, so someday I'm gonna buy a Tesla, try it with rideshare so I can have a valid perspective on it. So that's going to be later down the line. Once I'm debt free, I'm going to save up money. I'm going to buy cars and then drive it for 3 months, sell it, buy something else, and test it so I can have actual data to provide to you guys. I know. So right now I'm biased. I'm biased based off of paper because I don't have a Tesla. Sorry. Some of you do. And some of you provide me with other perspectives that I didn't think about, and I'm grateful for it. Alexander says compact Prius, especially Prius V used. Prius V is exactly what I would get. I'm sad they stopped making them in 2017. I'm waiting for the new Priuses to become used Priuses because they look so sexy. They look so sexy. William says it baffles me right now at the airport. Thought there's a pickup truck in front of me. It's wild. So I understand that when you start doing rideshare, you do it with whatever car you have. Fine. But they could sell pickup trucks, retain their value pretty well compared to cars. You could sell your pickup truck, buy like 3 Priuses. I measure everything in Priuses now and buy something else, right? Or use your pickup truck for something else, like actually like delivering stuff. There's apps and stuff like that. So, I remember I went to the airport for my honeymoon back in September, and we got picked up in a pickup truck. It was clean. It was nice, very spacious. It was cool, but I just feel like the gas and the cost of the truck just don't align with what it needs to align with. You remember I said if I could do rideshare in a Cybertruck, that would be cool. I've been kind of looking every now and then to see if it pops up, but if the Cybertruck was released at its original pricing, I'd be more on board with that. I'd definitely be more on board with that. William says 7 to 8 SUV black, but like what SUV? Which one would you do? Truck driver says I was shopping Camry and Highlander, but settled with the Model Y. I feel like he wants to be part of the culture, and that's fine. You just pay it off, bro. Just pay it off. Just hustle and pay it off. William says hybrid Lexus RAV4 Prime. The Primes are expensive, but if used in a few years, used for these will be the move. I haven't looked at the hybrid Lexus, and I think they've been out for a while. I'm not gonna look it up now because I think there's one more story I want to go through. The Driven Dad says the Infinity SUVs have a great warranty for doing black car service. Interesting. William says, I agree with you, Tristan. I appreciate it. Ooh, someone gave me, what is this? William says, good live chat. I appreciate that. Thank you. Truck Driver says, Tristan, let's have an open dialogue with you about this topic, maybe a video. I'll tell you what I'm umming about because I don't want you to misinterpret my I'm thinking, should we do it live or do you just want to do a video? We can do either way. You said you live in Wilmington. In person is always best. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it on X. Let me look into it. I'm probably gonna prioritize trying to do it live, but the likelihood of that happening is very, very low. But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about what we want to talk about, and then I can carve out some time for it. Yeah, I can do that. Driven Dad says, just on that vein, there's something I want to share with the entire chat. At some point, I'm gonna make it so, you know, we can have more open discussions. Like people can jump in and like, either talk one-on-one with me or we can get a group in here and we can do like a panel. It's on my mind. It's something I'm gonna plan for like a segment for like 30 minutes to an hour for the live stream. This is what we'll do. I have to set it up to make it easier for you guys to like come in. It's probably gonna be through Discord. It'll probably be in a couple weeks, but that's something that I will be doing in the future. Just wanted to let you guys know that's something that's gonna come. The Driven Dad says a 7-seater X will almost be 2 Model Ys if new. Yuck. Yuck. Sandra says no transmission in hybrid. Don't think that's true, but I'm not 100% sure. Ron says just got back from a Somerville to, I don't even know where this is. 47 miles, only $34. That's a huge L. You shouldn't have taken it. You should have put that destination filter on and you would have never left and you wouldn't have this problem. Come on, man. Use those destination filters. I hope you made some good money last week, Ron. Ron's in my market and I hope you capitalized on what was happening. It sounds like you just got in here. But look out for the video I put out that goes over my earnings because I did very well. Alexandra says she's 797 in one day. You are the GOAT. I'm not the best, but I'm trying to be. And I appreciate that. I did put a lot of hard work into that. It did about 250 of it was from bonuses, so whatever. But even $550 in one day, that's still excellent. How do you always get tip? People don't tip me. I read something recently and I haven't tried it yet, but I'm gonna try it soon. Your market's gonna matter for sure. But someone said that they always remind passengers to rate them 5 stars as soon as possible at the end of the ride. And what that does is it immediately reminds people to tip. Some people will get out of a Lyft, and the next time they open the app will be the next time they take a Lyft. And if a couple only goes to dinner once a month, the next time they open the Lyft app is going to be in a month, right? So just that's a very subtle way to do it. There's other drivers who straight up say, "Yo, tip me in the app," but I don't want to impose like that. I'm not a huge fan of that. And I don't get tipped a lot, right? I can bring this back up. Some days I do well with tips, but let's just see. 8 tips on 27 rides. That's less than a third. That's pretty good. Okay, all right. Maybe this week isn't a good example. I had a lot of rich people in town last week. The students were gone. Students usually don't tip. And it was a food and wine festival with a bunch of people coming from different states just for the festival. So those people, they have money. 43 rides, 14 tips. It's I think last week tip wise was an anomaly. It's not usually like that for me. So driver says, I drive an EV full time for rideshare, and Tristan's concerns with supercharging is valid. I appreciate that. However, I will say what you experience in your market might not be experienced in more well done markets. Like I know New Jersey has a great supercharging network. California probably does as well. But it is something people need to consider on a region to region basis. And they just allowed all the other EV cars to charge there as well. And for example, the Ford Mach-E, when the Ford Mach-E is charging at a supercharger, it takes up 2 slots. Let me see if I can I actually had it on the docket for today, but I was like, you know what? Nobody cares about this stuff. So let me go to X. Let's go MKBHD. See if I can find it. Hopefully he doesn't tweet a lot. That's a sick keyboard. Okay, so here's what he says. He says on the upside, this is sick. 15,000 plus Tesla superchargers available for non-Tesla with an adapter starting today. This is a couple weeks ago. On the downside, did you catch it? In Tesla's own video with a Mach-E, because of the charger point location, the owner parks in the spot that's now sorry. On the downside, did you catch it? In Tesla's own video with a Mach-E, because of the charge port location, the owner parks in the spot that's now blocking 2 spots where a Tesla would take up 1. If the charger station fills up the remaining spots with Teslas, the app will show 1 charger as available, but the parking spot is blocked by the Mach-E. So let's see what he's talking about. Dang, there's no volume. All right, so let's bring it back a little bit. So this is the Mach-E, the Ford Mach-E. The charging port is on this side, but the charger that there is, oh, you guys probably can't see that. Hold on. Dang. All right, so yeah, you guys can't see if I do that like that. So, all right, Mach-E right here. The charger port is at the front driver's side right here. And this Tesla charger is for this slot right here in the middle. This Tesla is being charged here. And another Tesla should be able to charge here, but they're going to take up this plug and put it in the Mach-E. And, you know, this isn't unique problem to the Mustang. Like, not all of the non-Tesla cars have this problem, but a couple of them do. So that's something that is going to be an issue moving forward. But my personal problem in my market is that I'd have to drive 20 minutes to supercharger, charge for 20 minutes, and then drive 20 minutes back downtown. That's what my problem is. And I don't think downtown will ever get superchargers because even without rain on a full moon, it floods. Like, let me see if I can, it flooded last week. It flooded 2 days ago. Look, this is from March 9th. Today's March 11th. This car is not moving because it is stuck. You want a supercharger in that? You don't. Like, just full moon, it doesn't even have to rain. It'll flood. Now, if you have a Tesla, you can float. But if it's salt water, you don't want to do that because once the water dries, your car's gonna catch on fire. All right, let me look at if there's anything else worth talking about. I had a couple of topics. There's about 15 minutes left in the live stream. Let me see what else is worth discussing. Okay, yeah, you know what? Let's end it here because we've been talking a lot about hybrids and whatnot. We'll end it here. So this article came out. It's by Business Insider. It came out on February 28th, 2024. And it says, Toyota was right about hybrid cars all along. This is more of a general thing. I understand we have our own opinions as rideshare drivers about how things should be. But I think there are some things we can take from the market. You know, for example, Hertz getting rid of their Teslas because of how expensive it is to maintain them. That's something we should kind of be paying attention to. We should be paying attention to what automobiles or just like manufacturers are deciding to do moving forward. It's important to try to predict the trends so that you don't get caught with your pants down. It says Toyota is the originator of the hybrid car craze in the early 2000s, is poised to reclaim its crown as the king of green cars. As demand for battery electronic vehicles cools and more shoppers look towards hybrids, the Prius maker is among the most well-suited to meet current moment in the transition to electric cars. After years of being labeled an EV laggard among its peers of the industry, customers don't appear to care that Toyota has so far released only one pretty unpopular electric car in the US, and you know, the one with the wheels that literally fell off. I don't actually know what they're talking about here. Toyota is recalling 2,700 of its flagship electric. I didn't even know it had an electric SUV. I guess it was just that bad. What is it even called? Toyota said it on Thursday that the global recall of the model BZ4X, what a terrible name, 260 in the US. I had no idea they made an electric car. No idea. The Japanese automaker actually tops the list of brands most considered by EV shoppers in a recent survey, beating out Ford and Elon Musk's Tesla. It would appear Toyota's more hybrid-heavy approach to electric cars is alluring for the new breed of electric car shopper, more frugal and practical than the early adopters that came before them. Just want to point out, this article is meant for the general population doesn't mean that it's like really accurate for rideshare drivers, but it is something to consider. Toyota has been Toyota has been talking more about this bridge between where we're at on the transition from internal combustion to fully electric. A consulting firm that did the survey told Business Insider. Other manufacturers, until as of late, of course, have made pretty strong positions on EVs. Core said the latter position wasn't resonating well with customers. Toyota's chairman, Akio Toyoda, has long been a skeptic of the industry's all-in attitude on battery-powered vehicles, preaching instead the importance of Toyota's multiple pathway approach, in which the automaker is researching and developing a variety of alternatives to the internal combustion engine. Toyota has pushed back on proclamations that EVs will one day become the dominant powertrain. Most recently, he predicted in January that no matter how much progress BEVs make, these cars would still eventually account for only 30% of global market share at most. The headline says Detroit may owe Toyota an apology. Toyota's competition, particularly in Detroit, has plowed billions of dollars into new electric lineups and promised an all-electric future is just around the corner. This, paired with the success of Tesla and overall investor youth struggling. Investor enthusiasm for EV technology left Toyota looking like a laggard. Despite years of criticism, it appears Toyota may have had the right idea after all. Hybrid sales rose much more quickly than EV sales last year, up 65% to more than 1.2 million, according to Cox Automotive. While Americans bought the same number of purely powered EVs, that segment growth was just 46 year over year. Still impressive. Don't knock that. That's still impressive. Shoppers in the market for a hybrid are also much more likely to pony up more cash for these cars. That's an interesting perspective. They're saying shoppers are more likely to spend more money for hybrids than they are for electrics. That's interesting. Don't be like them. Spend the least money possible to make the most money. Thanks. That leaves Toyota in a winning position right now. The Japanese car company has been adding hybrid versions of its most popular models to its lineup for the last several years, including hybrid versions of its highly profitable SUVs. The Camry, America's best-selling car for the past 20 years, is set to be hybrid only by next year. That's dope. That's dope. Companies such as Ford and General Motors had been relying on high-priced luxury EVs to carry them into profitability into that segment. That's how Tesla started. The strategy is harder to pull off the current EV market, forcing these companies to rethink their longer-term EV goals. That probably has to do with Hertz, because they just dropped a bunch of used cars on the market, which forced Tesla to decrease price and kind of put Tesla and all these other companies into like a race to the bottom competition. In a move that vindicated Toyota's commitment to hybrids, GM recently went back on its plans to skip hybrids in North America, with CEO Mary Barra telling investors the company was bringing some hybrid options to the region this year. Ford already sells an array of hybrids in the US, including the popular F-150 hybrid. I didn't know that was a thing. Toyota has spent the past several years releasing more hybrids and plug-in hybrids while refusing to give up on the nascent hydrogen fuel technology that many of its competitors have largely abandoned. It appears this long game on EV is working for customers right now. So just a perspective to consider. But I'm out of here. Make sure you guys go to Twitter, check out Coast to Coast. You know, they have some good stuff. If you need some more stuff to listen to, I got some videos coming out this week. Every day I do this. Make sure you like this video from me. It helps. And anytime you see video from me, make sure you like it from me. And I will see you guys next week or in the comments of